And good evening, everybody, and welcome to the interview room. We are so grateful that you're here this evening. A late evening show. Dr. Brucato's been running all over the place today,
Oh yeah.
making TV appearances, and this is the only time I could get him here tonight. Man, we've got a lot to talk about, Gary, and Josh from the lab is supposed to jump in with us, so we'll be expecting him here pretty shortly. And
You
thank
were
you
you
so
were on
much.
Nancy Grace, right, today, Chris? Weren't you?
This morning, yeah, early this morning, and thank you, single mom, for becoming a member. We're so grateful for you. We want to thank our mods, of course, each and every one of you: Teresa M, Maui Girl, Miss Sophia, Laura, and excuse me, Mimi. Always grateful for each of you, and of course, my sweetheart who's in the chat tonight, also pulling double duty.
Hi, Karen.
Busy day. If you've not picked up a copy of Dr. Brucato's book, over my right shoulder right here, please go get that. The New Evil, and you'll see it on the thumbnail as well as in our description below. Okay, so a lot to cover. We've got a lot going on. The families have spoken. As Gary, you're a little dark. There you go. You look great now. Did you go get a light? Bada boom.
No, I think I figured out some secrets about how to light the area a little better.
There you go. So
like a tanning salon in here now. You know.
The families have spoken. It's a 50-50 split. Some family members want it over with. Of course, Kaylee's family says no way, and they've started a petition. You can go to the family page and see where the links to that are to try to solicit the judge about not accepting the plea deal. So tonight, our lineup is going to be, as you know, here on this channel, we have been on target more than any other true crime channel on YouTube. Even before things started happening, we were saying things that are now not only have come to pass, but we've also held a lot of information behind the scenes that we've talked about. And, you know, with the Dateline situation that came out where Dr. Brucato was on that show with Coop, you know, there was a lot of information that was floating around there that even Gary didn't know until he got onto that show. And after the show, he shared it with me after it aired about the, you know.
Well, I mean, we just discussed what was aired.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
The public knows too. Yeah, right.
Yeah, the public knows now. And Buddy is below me here, shaking his dog. So if you hear him, you'll know. Okay, so one of the things I want to talk about is let's first of all, you know, Gary, you mentioned that Bryan Kohberger sees himself as an object of study. That's where we kind of left off yesterday. I want to break that down a little bit more of why you feel that way and what to expect potentially tomorrow, because I've got a couple of predictions of my own.
Well, I believe that Kohberger likely views the world through a overly intellectualized lens, and the whole point was to study people like amoeba in a petri dish and try to make a science out of them with that strange distance. It reminds me of the opening paragraphs of The War of the Worlds, if you ever read it, about the cool intelligences that are sort of hovering and watching you and you don't know. He has that quality. And I think the point is, here's a person who I think to a certain extent was fragmented. Part of him, I think, was probably studying crime to learn how to do it better. And another part of him was probably battling his own dark side. And I think that fragmentation is what would have drawn him to people like Bundy, who seemed to be, you know, in a mental house where they go out the front door or the back, depending upon their circumstances. And I think that understanding that notion of that division of the self is right at the heart of him. But now there must be a relief. The relief that the mask has fallen off, the relief that the family knows what he might have been doing in privacy, the particular outrageous imagery he was looking at, all the dirty private secrets of his life are now out in the open. And it must be a relief because now he can just enjoy it, swim in it. And I think as a consequence, in his mind, he probably joins that pathetic kind of pandemonium of killers that he studied once, and probably imagines himself one day being in textbooks. And my prediction about him, as I said on the interview room, is that he's probably someone who's going to want to volunteer his time to help law enforcement catch other criminals, like a Hannibal Lecter type, because he toes that line like that. As a matter of fact, that's exactly what happens in The Silence of the Lambs, right? That Hannibal Lecter, in exchange for favors, wants to try to understand other killers. So yeah, I think he thinks of himself that way. To the question of will I get to interview him, I don't know. I mean, it's certainly something that I could see happening. I have connections with a number of different networks and programs, and I can envision someone reaching out and saying, we want you to go talk to him. I mean, after all, we know this guy was watching pretty much everything being said about him before his capture. And I really do think that he saw when we did the profile of him with Cooper, Greg Cooper, and Burgess, me, Chris, and Dean Jackson on this very show. And I think, given how incredibly accurate, I have to say, that turned out to be, now that he's basically declaring himself guilty, we can say that was an incredibly accurate profile we put together. I think he's going to want to know how we did it, how we understood him. And I still think he is the person who in the audience said they're going to find him in Pennsylvania. Either that or someone who went on to yap, who knew a little too much. I don't know, but I think it might have been him. Hi, Josh. How you doing?
Well, how are you? Sorry about that. I was having
with the cat dragged in. What happened to you?
Well, my I don't know. I had a monitor go down and I couldn't pull a window from it. It was the whole thing. It was.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I got it finally.
Cat ate the homework.
Yeah. So did anybody? What'd you say, Josh?
Well, I was wondering. What did you say, Chris?
I was going to say your dog, but I said your cat eat your homework because I know you don't have a cat.
I don't have a cat. Thank God.
I love it. Well, but you know, Chris, there are so many things that are puzzling about this situation. The one that I still keep coming back to that's very weird to me is that I think he was probably going to be spared the death penalty anyway because of the autism diagnosis he received from a board-certified neuropsychologist at the time of his incarceration. I believe he was assessed. I am not getting into whether that's a true diagnosis or not. I didn't examine him, but he was diagnosed that way. And I think it is certainly going to be used to mitigate and try to get him isolated and some special services and possibly even treatment while he's incarcerated. You know, there's one thing also that I want to raise that I haven't said yet that's sort of bothering me, is this whole idea that the families could theoretically get the judge to decline. There's one huge problem with that. The huge problem is that Kohberger has now, for all intents and purposes, confessed, and it would not be possible for him to receive a fair trial if they decided they weren't taking the plea and were going to have a hearing. So then what? What do you do when you have a person who's basically said, yeah, I did it, but you don't accept the plea? Then what? There's the idea that they basically, it's just he's basically saying he's guilty and they sentence him, and that can include the death penalty. Well, then they're going to use the Atkins thing and try to get the death penalty removed anyway because of the autism. So I think one way or another, you were going to wind up with that outcome. And they got together and said, why put everybody through this? Let's just get this over with. We know where this is going, and ended it. And my guess is, my very strong guess is, two things happened. One is that Hitler basically cornered them. They ran out of ways to explain this. I mean, the alternative attackers theory went out the window. You know, you can't just make this stuff up without being able to demonstrate somebody else was even there. And the other thing that I think happened, I heard Blum say this on Nancy Grace. I have no idea if it's true, if it's speculation, I don't know, but it jives with what I think happened, which is, I think that his parents basically said, you got to do this. And Blum says that it's because, I don't know, again, I don't know if he's speculating. You were there, Chris, when he said it on Nancy Grace. But he's basically saying that the parents might have had to testify, and they were like, we don't want to. We're not comfortable with that. You better cop to this. I think it's that the mask fell off after Dateline. You know, I think they realized what this guy was doing. I think they probably had their suspicions. I mean, Chris, imagine you have a kid that is accused of a quadruple murder, and you're trying everything in your power to deny it, put it out of consciousness, and then you see on a national television show photographs of his phone where he's got loads of women on there that he might have been trolling, and P of an extremely disturbing and violent nature, and cosplaying a killer. And how about knowing that he was on the phone with you right after these killings? I mean, I'm sorry, but they must have said, we have to accept it now, and we think you got to cop to this. I mean, what do you think, Chris? Don't you get the sense that they played a big role? Because it was the mom, I heard, that, according to Blum, it was the mom that was pushing him to not take, to not cop to it until, but now the cat's out of the bag, I think. What do you guys think? I think it's plausible.
Josh, you weigh in first. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I said that yesterday. I got smoked in the comments for it. That his parents had something to do with it. I think that they did. I think that everybody will say, well, he's a psychopath or whatever they want to call him, that he wouldn't do anything because of his parents, and stuff like that. And that's just not true. People, no matter what, people have a special connection with their mothers and their fathers. And I'm not saying that that's the entire reason, but I mean, his mother was very anti-death penalty. His father, it sounds like, they were sort of onto him the whole time. And so, yeah, I think that his parents had something to do with it. I think that the judge, like Dr. Gary said, I think the judge backed him into a corner. I think they ran out of time. I think they ran out of plays, is sort of, and I don't think that he was ever going to get the death penalty. I think that the death penalty was a bargaining chip, a tool that was used to get where they wanted to get. And I completely understand why some parents are frustrated and upset about this.
No, I understand. Absolutely.
It's pretty common though, Dr. Gary, right? I mean, it is.
Well, look, the fact is, there is no way to achieve justice.
I agree.
In this situation. Even if you have the eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth idea, you're talking about somebody that, for no reason other than some weird, perverse, psychosexual or personality-driven reason not only snuffed 4 people, but did it in the most heinous imaginable way. I mean, look, I have, as recently as a couple of days ago, I have dealt with people that have stabbed people, and I have dealt with people who have been stabbed. I have seen wounds on people. I have seen crime scene photos. I have been consulted on cases. Chris, you've seen more of them than you want. And I am telling you that somebody being stabbed with a K-bar knife was a scene that I would not wish on anybody.
No,
The cops that saw that scene are probably traumatized.
of course.
And 4 kids, and you know how many cuts they had? And some of them weren't even just cut, right? It was more stuff, you know, with the carving in the hamstrings and the whole. This wasn't just stabs. I mean, Chris, you could speak to this. You think those people are ever going to be the same that saw that scene?
No. I mean, it will always be something that will be with them. And, you know, if we think about the totality of the circumstances here, I mean, this is a situation where everybody for the longest time was saying there's no way one person can do, you know, this type of crime. And it's so plausible and easy to think through this based on the fact that if he started from the 3rd floor, and then I said this the other day, my theory has always been, and Gary and Josh, we've all talked about this, but my theory has always been that house has been the target. Those 5 women, all 5 women within that house. Now, you know, there's variances in relationship to why I believe that, but I still believe that based upon his suspectology, based upon your profile, Greg, talking to Greg, talking to Ann, I believe he picked up this fantasy obsession with a couple of characters. And Gary, you know, you and I talked about Ted Bundy. You're the one that, you know, picked up the thumb concept, and these correlations just started to happen. And there's a couple others we know that he was studying, but Ted seemed to be his main play. And the more I looked into that, the more I thought about it. And when the photograph showed up on his phone of him cosplaying with Ted, and that's why the thumbnail tonight is Ted Bundy and Bryan on either side. I think there's, and then we talk about the pee that he had, you know, the type of material that he had. It wasn't just sleeping, right? I mean, you and I both know it's going to be a lot more drastic than that.
Well, there was also, I mean, it was reeled on Dateline that some of it was also women who were forced, people that were drugged. I mean, you know, we're talking about various things where the common denominator is a person who looks dead. And remember, Bundy was a necrophile. We're talking about somebody who wants complete control over a person like a marionette because he thinks like a scientist. He wants to experiment. And that's why my theory is, and if I ever went in to talk to him, after a lot of hours of yapping, I would go in and sort of see if I can get him to say it. But my strong sense is that the fantasy, probably an homage to Bundy or inspired by Bundy, would have been to blitz-style attack a victim who was sleeping, carry her out of the home, and take her somewhere, probably to that park. That was the alibi. He was spotted there several times, probably preparing. And to use the knife to threaten her, to say certain things, enact certain fantasies, engage in SA. But I believe that if he had gotten there, he wouldn't have been able to do it. I think that this is a fundamentally inadequate person. I see the knife and the stabbing and the whole thing as one big, giant, pathetic compensation for that. And I think that this is a person who is living a very perverse, masturbatory kind of existence where you have to picture him living in a fantasy world, looking at this vile stuff. I am still convinced that there was some kind of surveillance or watching, or at least creeping on different women, watching them, whether it's through windows, from the car, following them, snapping photos without their knowledge, whatever. And you got to picture him in private, because we know that that's what this type of people do. And the part that bothers me the most is that now it's all reversed. He gets to be the object of fixation, fantasy, voyeurism, where everyone wants to know the naughty details of what's in his mind, the little, the little disgusting details that they think are so fascinating and important, whatever. I think that the best thing to do with this kind of person is to let him die in obscurity. Unfortunately, as a person who studies this stuff, I look like a hypocrite, because I write about these people, but I don't write about them because I want to celebrate them. I write about them because we need to understand them to stop people from doing stuff like this ever again. I also believe that he knew my book, and there are several reasons I think that.
What number is he in the book?
He would be a 16, and he would be the subtype of 16 that is called the mastermind, who expresses domination and control, not in an overtly sexual way, but through power, manipulation, it's sort of wanting to dominate. And it isn't necessarily sadistic, because you don't even want the person to be alive or moving or aware of it. You just want total control over them. And those kind of people, they manipulate the press, they manipulate the police, they manipulate the public view. They like the idea that they're slithering like a snake underneath, could strike like at any time. But other people in that category would be the son of Sam, who's somebody else that we know he was interested in, and he was interested in. He would have been similar in personality to somebody like the Zodiac Killer, or somebody like Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, Unabomber, and it's important to understand that because of the sexual inadequacy, people like that assert control in other ways, domination, control in other ways, that godlike thing, that righteousness, that intellectual understanding as a way of dominating, talking down to people, making them feel stupid. And we know that that's exactly what he was like. Now, there was a little glimpse of him on the News Nation episode. I saw a little bit of it where Catherine Ramsland talked about him for the first time, and it basically sounded that he was something of a nothing burger, that he was basically just a kind of a quiet, nerdy, weird guy, and who seemed intellectually curious and obviously was able to slip under the radar. But I think that speaks to the double life, and that other part of him that was in the secret, and now it's all
he
out
slipped
there.
under her radar. That's
That's fascinating, but I think that says something. I mean, that I don't think an autistic person, and look, I'm not speaking to his diagnosis, but it would take a great deal of manipulation to be able to hide things like that. An autistic person would not be particularly good at that. I work with autistic people every day of my life. They are among the most harmless, kind, brilliant people I've ever known. I love them. That is one very special group. The contributions they make to the world are marvelous. I've been surrounded by people like that since I was a child, because I was a child pianist. I played piano at 4 years old. And so I've always been surrounded by prodigious people and people who were on the spectrum and things like that. And these are very special people to me. And they are not the kind of people who could fool an expert into believing that they had no features like that. I really don't think so. That takes a different kind of personality, a manipulative kind of character. I think, when he gets evaluated where there's no, shall we say, trying to keep him alive, where he's just evaluated, I think he may turn out to have different kind of features, personality features. The other thing that's bothering me, Chris, is that everyone is colluding with his narcissistic core. Everything colludes with it. And anyone who has the fantasy that this guy is not going to wind up in some raider-like isolated situation, signing autographs and telling this story and the whole thing, is kidding themselves. I know that a lot of people want to have the fantasy that he's going to wind up like the general population, getting like tortured, and there's going to be revenge or whatever. I don't think so. I think the autism diagnosis is going to afford him isolation, and I think, you know, it's all going to be mitigated. And I think that he's basically going to wind up alone. And you know what? That's not a torture for somebody like this. He likes it. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't get along with people well. He'll be under total control in that little holding court with people who think he's fascinating, wanting to tell his story, wanting to help professionals, you know, that kind of a character. And it's disturbing, you know. So, I mean, Chris, I don't know what you think, but I don't think he's going to have the greatest existence in the world in jail, but I don't think it's going to be as bad as it would be in general population.
Oh, if he goes to general population, he's
Toast.
He's toast. Don't you agree, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, any high profile person, and he might be the most high profile person out there besides Diddy right now, getting ready to make their way into prison. And I'll tell you that I think that, you know, and a lot of the reason that people are upset and the family are upset is, you know, how fast this is going to happen. You know, he's not going to be told that he has to give a step-by-step account of what happened. There's very little transparency when it comes to plea deals with the public, and this has been such a public case, and people have soaked in every minute of it. I mean, even people that aren't into quote unquote true crime have heard about this case. People that casually watch TV on the weekends, they'll catch, you know, something about it. Inside Edition, TMZ, Yahoo, Fox News, everybody reports on this case. And it comes to a halt so fast with no transparency, no apologies, no anything. He's not required to do anything other than say, you know, plead guilty. That's it. And I know that
we don't really know the
well, it's being reported, but that he's not going to have to. That he's just
been reported.
Well, it's being reported, and that's what sounds like is what's going to happen tomorrow. Is that he's just going to have to plead guilty? That's it.
So he doesn't have to give the details.
Doesn't sound like
it gets to save him for whoever he wants to transactionally share them with. Sounds a lot like a certain slick psychopath we all know, Ted Bundy. And you know, Ted Bundy made a career out of saving his little pieces of information. And when he didn't want to tell you something, he didn't tell you. For example, they had to reconstruct what happened to Kimberly Leach, but he certainly didn't tell anyone. Remember the person that was found dead in the same park that was suspected to be a Bundy victim, that Kohberger claimed he was in that park? I still think that's not a coincidence. Well, they went in to ask Bundy if he had killed that woman on the day of his execution, and he denied it. You think his denial means he didn't kill her?
No. No, I don't.
And think about it like this. Let's say it turned out, just for the sake of argument, just thought experiment. I'm not saying
just before you answer that, I'm going to answer this question or this comment. I don't think he's going to give it to Ramsland either.
Get that info? Oh, I think he's going to save it for whoever.
Oh, he's going to take her for a ride. He already has. He already has. Think about it.
Well, I mean, with everyone, it's terrible. But
just my opinion.
I'm trying to remember what the train of thought there was. But about Bundy, Chris, Josh, is that, let's say, just as a thought experiment, let's say Kohberger knew the Bundy story so intimately that he knew that there was this theory that his first victim out there was this woman, Paige, that was found dead in that park where he claims he was. Let's say. Now, he would also have known that they went in and asked him if he did it on the day of his execution, and he denied it. That's interesting, because then it becomes the crime you took to the grave. You amused yourself that no one found out. And isn't it interesting to think, if that whole thing was an homage, what he would have been saying with the homage? Right? I got away with it. You know what I'm saying? I also thought that there was a really, really interesting symbolism to that stupid alibi, because I think alibis are sometimes like a projective test, like a Rorschach plate, because you're lying sometimes and you're projecting into the BS, with the BS. And I really think that the symbolism of the alibi was these women were like stars that I was gazing at and studying every drop of their movements like an astronomer, but I couldn't touch one. If I touched one, it would destroy me.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to him. That's what happened to him. He reached into the house and it destroyed him in the process. And you know what? Good.
Chris, do you think that he's going to have to give any detail?
No.
No, I don't either. And
not a word.
Yeah, basically what I think is going to happen tomorrow is he's going to go there and say, the accounts that are brought by the prosecution, are they similar to the events, or something along those. He's not going to have to say anything, and except is this voluntary? Were you coerced into this? And if he says no, I think that the judge will sign off on it, and they'll schedule sentencing down the road. And
they have to kick him in the ego, Josh. Whoever interviews him has to say to him, "You're a loser. You went in there, you didn't even get anything you wanted."
I know.
And then he'll say, "You're not right. Let me tell you what really happened." In other words, you got to toy with this guy's ego. The reality is all ego.
Well, and you're also saying that at the same time that, the defense, it's believed that the defense is the one that asked for the deal, and which is common.
Is that true? Is that being reported? I've only heard speculation. I don't know if that's true.
I believe that's true. Is that right, Chris?
Yes, it came from the defense.
Okay,
yeah.
That's official. Okay.
Yes.
It's
so
official.
he now would have a lot of input on the details of this, wouldn't he?
Oh, absolutely. And here's
anything. I'll plead guilty, but I don't have to say. I'm not. Part of this is I'm not going to sit in open court and say, I went here and I did this and I did that. He doesn't have to do that. I mean, and that's going to make so many people upset. And I understand why, because if there was a trial, there would be a lot of transparency. There's no transparency. That's going to happen tomorrow. I just don't think. I'd be shocked if anything.
He wouldn't have agreed to anything in which anybody got satisfaction or was.
I agree.
He did this because this is the last pathetic gasp of control that was left for him. That's all it is. Don't try to project onto him ever a shred of caring about other people and doing things out of a moral compass or kindness or anything like that. That happens when human beings who don't have that kind of brain cannot fathom that there's darkness in the world. But the reality is you got to think of a person thinking like a reptile. Like, what is in this for me? Because you're talking about somebody that was able to go into a room preparing to kill, right? It turns out there's two women in there, maybe even entwined with one another because they loved each other. And then looking down at them, pulls out the blade and just does what he does while one is fighting him and screaming whatever's going on, and he could care less. You know what I'm saying? Imagine that. Just couldn't care less, not even a drop of compunction. So you're talking about a situation where somebody's got the feeling a lizard would have for a fly. And you think this guy is going to go in there and give anybody anything? No way. And, listen, Josh, you ever been around a psychopath? Now, I don't know if he's a psychopath, but he may be. I don't know. Yeah, right. You ever been around? Honestly, you ever been in the presence of one? I have.
I'm not sure. Probably, but
Chris,
I don't know.
Chris, you've been around them, right? A couple of them.
Oh, I've only interviewed a couple.
Yeah, just interviewed a couple. Let me tell you something. Being in the room with one of them is the stuff of nightmares.
Well, I have been. Yeah.
Stuff of nightmares. Why? Because the person uses humanity, mimics humanity, but doesn't have any. They talk to you like they are a person. Oh, here, you want some of my lunch? You look hungry. Sit down. Oh, you seem like a nice guy. Where'd you get? Chris, you've seen this crap, right? Oh, you got a new haircut?
I had Brandon Wilson lean over after about
Exactly.
4 hours, and he looked me right in the eyes. The room went cold. His eyes went black, and he says to me, "You know who I am." Let me actually
You saw the
do
black
it.
eyes, huh?
Let me actually do it the way he did it. Do you okay? And you need to put the light on. There you go. He leans over. I was across from him. You know who I am.
Yeah.
And I was like,
But
break time. Break time.
it gets now. Granted, this guy,
Hit the
he's
can.
got that kind of weirdness on top of it. He doesn't have the Bundy slickness. This guy's weird. Like, this is the kind of guy, like, he would go into a place and the women that worked there would, like, scatter because they knew how weird he was. Remember the story that came out in the news where the women, it was something like the women were communicating with each other by the electronic boards because they knew how weird this guy was. Remember him on the dates when he said to the woman, "You got," that he liked her birthing hips.
Oh yeah, I remember.
He wanted to tickle the woman instead of
What a
doing
romantic.
anything more intimate. I mean, he is weird. So I think the weirdness combined with the whatever else would be a very disturbing experience. It would feel like when BTK was giving that speech about putting people down like dogs and talking
You mean
about the
projects? They were projects.
the projects. Oh yeah. It's gonna feel like that. If they let this guy talk about what he did, he would say things like, I began to study her on a Tuesday. I noticed that, she did, this was her routine. And by Thursday, I had established yada, yada, yada. I did my intel by blah, 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 blah. And I'm telling you, somewhere, this guy kept notes. They all do. Somewhere there are notes. There are keys, there are codes, there are books. I don't care. He's got it somewhere.
And that's what he'll drop when he wants.
Study. What'd you say?
That's what he'll drop when he wants to punish people even further.
Yeah, but Chris, and I
right
believe
now he's punishing the families.
Right. Exactly. Punishing everybody who was loved.
Do you guys remember when Tracy Edwards testified against Dahmer?
Oh, yeah.
He talked about how Dahmer's face and kind of stature would change. And he said it was almost demonic. He did not look like he looked while he was in court. He looked different. And I mean, that when I heard him talking about that, and he really struggled to even talk about it, put it into words. It was one of the most terrifying things that you could listen to. I mean, you're in the presence of a monster, and unfortunately, Tracy Edwards ended up his life took a downward spiral after that. Never the same.
Well, I had a caper one time.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was still looking for the victim. We hadn't found her yet. What the heck was that? Anyway, sorry about that, everybody. That was my computer beeping. Anyway, long story short, which I always say, I'm out in the brush, literally in the brush, and I'm looking for this gal, and this guy walks up to me. And at that time, I used to wear a shoulder holster with my weapon.
Like Bullet?
Like Bullet. Absolutely. Steve McQueen, here I come. You two put your seatbelts on, boys. We're going for a ride. And ladies, boom, let's go.
Let's do it.
And I tell Karen all the time, my driving scare you? And she says, no, of course not. I said, it scares me. So put your belt on. Let's roll here. Anyway, so I'm in the brush, and this guy walks up. His name was Dennis, who he was one of 3 people I ended up arresting. And he comes around my right side, and I had that chill and that sense of, DLR doesn't look right. And as he comes around me, I grab underneath my arm, and I said to him, don't even think about it. And he froze. And I thought to myself, man, how many times have I felt, seen this? And Bryan Kohberger tomorrow is going to project something that we've not seen yet. Just like when Brandon Wilson, the day he stood up in court, I don't know if you've ever seen that piece where he yells, "Yeah, I did it. I killed the kid." Kohberger won't do that,
No.
I predict. But he will at some point, like you said, Gary. I am convinced that Ted was his mentor mentally. And wasn't he studying him to the point where he was reading stuff? One of the professors
Yeah.
that was subpoenaed, didn't she have a piece that Bryan was studying about the inner personality duality?
No, there's two different things being mixed up. That there was a
Okay.
professor at the University of Washington that wrote a paper that he was studying. And there's a whole other, that's a very interesting story in and of itself. But then there was the professor that he had done his project with, where he was interested in the kind of phenomenology of killing and why people did it and how they did it. But there is no question in my mind that he was studying Bundy to the point that there was an over-identification with the fragmentation in him, the compartmentalization in him. You know, by day, the student helper, you know, whatever, and by night, you know, the bad boy, you know, kind of villain. But the thing is, I also think that there was a fantasy identification with Bundy because Bundy was a sort of winner socially, and Kohberger was not. So it was like he wanted to be that kind, but he was a lot more like one of those schlubby serial killers that were a social loser, like Zodiac Killer would have been, or you know, inadequate, weird, saying the wrong thing all the time. You know, not so you got to think like there's two types, right? So you got the like Kenneth Bianchi, Ted Bundy type, you know, the handsome, winning guy, even though he feels insecure and like a loser, invisible on the he's a chameleon, he can fake that. And then you get this other type that where you'd put the Son of Sam types that are more like everything that comes out of their mouth is just like it loses. They try to say something like, remember the story about him that was told where he went to the pool party and he's trying to talk, he's like staring at this woman in a bikini, he's attracted to her, and the woman's boyfriend basically comes, or husband or something, comes up to him and is like, you know, like, this is my wife, like my girlfriend, what are you doing? And he like still asked her for a number. I mean, come on. It's like, this is what you're dealing with. Like, so what does that mean? Does it mean that he's like, I'm so confident and competitive that I couldn't care less about, or does it mean that like he's that clueless? And remember the woman that he said that she like made the mistake of giving the number and they were going to go hiking, and he's like, hiking is an activity that I very much enjoy. Like, it would be like going out with Data from Star Trek, right? Weird. And you know,
I think it's a bit of both, Dr. Gary. I think worlds were colliding there. I think that he was so much
that's a great point.
Yeah, he had this you know, inflated self-ego, and then and then also his social awareness was terrible.
And you can bet, even though we don't know what that book was that he was reading, marked on page 118, if that doesn't turn out to be a book about Bundy, I'll eat my hat. Because the fact of the matter is, he was reading about Bundy.
He's got a giant's head.
No, don't eat my hat.
No.
I want him to eat it.
I'll eat it all. Humble pie, crow, and hat, and my hat all at the same time. Come on, of course it's going to be about Bundy. That's what he was reading a lot about. And the fact is, you can bet that the fascination with Bundy was the very thing that he was interested in all along. You know, what was it that sort of finally made that split break, where you went this way instead of that way? I know that's going to turn out to be the key to the whole thing. And now he doesn't have to fake it anymore. Mom and Dad know. They know about the perversions. They know about all the vile stuff. They know it all. And he doesn't have to hide it anymore. No more need to be a good boy by day. It's all out in the open. The real question is going to be, are they going to have the reaction that some family members have, like when BTK's wife never spoke to him again? Are they going to have that reaction? Are they going to have the reaction of Bundy's mother?
Tarn's comment. How not to impress a woman. You have good birthing hips. Exactly. Oh my gosh.
I've actually had that same compliment said to me before. Didn't work.
That you have nice birthing hips?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
I wasn't flattered.
I refuse to comment on that, but okay.
Well, you just did. Even by refusing, that's a comment.
But mom and dad, Brenda says,
to be honest,
mom and dad knew from day one. I can't disagree with that. That's a great comment, Brenda.
I think their gut bothered them because, Blum said, you heard that the father might have been suspicious even as early as being in the car with him and getting pulled over, and that family members might have been weirded out by him with the keeping clean and the washing the car supposedly with the bleach, like you do. Anybody in the audience ever put bleach in their car? Who sent him to the same prison as Diddy? You could share a cell and have it.
Yeah, exactly. That's just
somebody said to me during the trial.
I actually heard Kohberger's rap the other day. Somebody sent apparently he had a rap song that he did 13 years ago. It's very
no. I need to hear that, please.
Nobody needs to, but I will send it to you.
I want it immediately. I want it as a ringtone. I want you to know that somebody who wanted me to appear on a show about P. Diddy wrote me, and all they did was say P. Diddy with a question mark. Like that was how to ask me if I was going to be on, and my answer was P. Diddy. Of course he did.
Exactly.
That was the end of it.
That's another weirdo.
Oh yeah, he is
we'll
special.
See what's going to happen there.
Well, he's pretty rich and powerful.
What are your thoughts on Gary? What's your? I know Ann Taylor is doing her thing, and it was good lawyering. I mean, I said that yesterday, but at the same time, it was also frustrating because the judge should have put it in check early on for the families, and this could have been taken care of 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But what do you think? I mean, if she knew all along that this guy had done this, it takes a special kind of personality to project into the public.
I don't want to guess this, but I think she was doing her job as a lawyer.
Yeah, I know, but to declare his innocence 1,000%, I mean, she should have just stayed away from that. That's just my opinion. Eric,
I'm not going to comment on her.
No, don't comment on her. That's fine. I'll do it.
That as a person, personally, who really tries to have a kind of integrity, I am a person who would say to a person, I can't defend you if I believe you did this. I can't speak to anybody else, but I have had situations where I've had to say to a person, I can't do it. It's not honest. I have to believe it. Now, that kind of thing, most people don't do. To be honest with you,
you're never going to defend anybody then.
Well, but I'm telling you, because I have to sleep at night and I've got to face my maker one day. So I don't do things like that. But I don't know what other people do, but I wouldn't. You understand? I would say to a person, I'll suggest you see someone else.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of I work with a lot of defense attorneys, and they, if you know that somebody's down for the count, you don't project as heavily into the arena, i.e. the court of public opinion. Just that. You just kind of, you do your job, you represent them, and you do what you need to do. But this case turned to a situation where she was ready to take on 4 innocent people. And had the court not intervened, that would have been a real mess up. So let's shift gears for a second.
Or maybe to a certain extent, she was under the spell too. I mean, this guy, this is a guy could manipulate anybody.
A lot of defense attorneys say, I don't want to know if you did it. I don't care if you did it. That's
I
how
mean,
they.
You have to know the truth, right? Behind the scenes,
Well, yeah, I guess.
but when you start pulling in other people that
Right.
that's when you go, wait a minute, what the heck's going on here? What the heck is going on here?
right.
But that said, all right, everybody, we don't think that, at least um, I don't think he's going to say anything tomorrow. I don't think he's going to confess. I could be wrong, but I'm going to go with an 80-20. The 20% being he does say something. I think he's going to keep his mouth shut. He's going to go to the prison. I think Hitler is going to accept the deal and say, thank you very much. Good luck. Let's set the sentencing date, all the pretrial stuff. He'll sit down with all the Dr. Brucatos and all those folks, and they'll do an assessment and say, yeah, okay, he needs to go here, he needs to go there. So, what do you think his first day in school is going to be like in Department of Corrections? Josh, I'll start with you.
Well, I mean, there's going to be a lot of chatter that they're going to have a new roommate. Whether he won't be in general population, but everybody's going to, when he makes that walk down the hall, they're going to razz him. He's going to be called all kinds of wonderful names. They're going to bang on the cell. They're going to say fresh meat, the same thing they do to everybody. And they're going to say, you better watch yourself. You better watch yourself. And, it's not like jail. I mean, it's just not going to be anything like jail. There's a lot of inmates in there that have nothing to lose. I think he's going to be terrified, and rightfully so, and he should be. And he's going to live and Dr. Gary's right. He's going to live the kind of existence where, he'll be in isolation, but that doesn't always protect you either. By the way, that they catch it sometimes. They're very mischievous, despicable people in there that would love nothing more than to make a name for themselves and say, hey, I'm the one that took him out. So it's going to be quite the adjustment. The first couple of days, they're going to be buzzing. Bryan Kohberger's here. It's going to be the same thing as like when Manson went to, when Manson ended up in San Quentin, I mean, there was just always a buzz about it. Chris Watts, same thing. Whitey Bulger, all of them. It's going to be awful. And
Josh, let me just say to you that people in the audience are reacting to you saying fresh meat.
yeah,
And I think you should explain what you mean because they don't understand.
Fresh meat is just what it is. He's a newbie there. It's open season for whatever.
Are you implying sexually?
Not necessarily. No, I mean they could. Yes, they could, but fresh.
You don't think that happens to prisoners?
Big time.
It's unfortunate.
But when you yell fresh meat at somebody, it covers a lot. Basically. I mean, he's the new guy. He's the high profile guy, and if they can get to him, they will. They will try.
Well, this is the other thing. Even though nobody says the motive and everybody says, oh, we don't know what the motive was, do you think it takes a genius to figure out that somebody watching that kind of P who did this was motivated by that kind of fantasy? You don't think that in the final analysis, this guy in a jail situation is basically going to be treated like a sex offender?
Oh, yeah, of course. I think so.
Okay. And how do they treat sex offenders in it? Some of these guys have sisters. Some of these guys love their mothers. You know what I'm saying? And as Chris pointed out earlier, which I thought was a very smart point, this guy is seen as aligned with law enforcement. In his head, he was going to be a guy that helped the police.
He's going to it's going to be, like I said, even though, what do they say, 23-hour lockdown or whatever. I know both of you have seen and heard of it before as well as I have. It doesn't always work. I mean, it just doesn't, they're not going to have one specific officer holding his hand on every trip down the hall. I mean,
no, but he could, with the autism diagnosis, there are going to be complaints that he needs special treatment,
And he
mental health
probably,
treatment. He may be, he could be complaining of being overwhelmed sensorially,
yeah.
becoming very depressed. He may become suicidal or say he is, but you never know. But I don't think that will happen, but you never know. And, 'cause I think he's too arrogant too. But all I know is that in the final analysis, a mass murderer, I mean, remember, Robbie Gerges and I did the largest study ever of mass murder ever done, right? Mass murderers, most of them, if they don't kill themselves, most of them later experience it as if it was an explosion of emotion where they had no coping skills, and they look at the blood on their hands and they look at the bodies and whatever. Some of them want to kill themselves, and some of them have regret. Some of them were deeply disturbed when they did it, and it passes. They get treated. With serial killers, which is what I think he was butting into, serial killers, they don't have any regret. Don't expect any come to Jesus moments for this guy.
Yeah.
Right. This is going to be, what do I have to do to relive this forever?
Oh, this is his entire existence now. I mean, this is the fantasy that will fuel him for the rest of his life. He'll relive it every day. It is, it's like he thinks that his victims are a slave to his mind, his imagination forever. That's the kind of, that's the kind of sickness.
I have drawings from Danny Rolling, and there were definitely some elements of Danny Rolling and this guy with the sorority style killings. And I think Danny Rolling also used the K-bar knife, if I'm not mistaken. Danny Rolling, I always thought Kohberger might be slightly mimicking too, who was the inspiration for Scream movies. Not a coincidence, right? With the mask and the whole, right. I think Danny Rolling is underestimated as an inspiration for Kohberger. I haven't talked about that previously, but he's a very interesting comparison point. And also went into sorority houses. I think that what's interesting in Rolling's drawings, he shows a number of figures to correspond with the number of victims he had. And in his drawings, they're in the possession of the Grim Reaper. The Grim Reaper is holding them in his palm. They're in a basket or a net or in other words, it's the idea is like, you belong to me. You're mine forever. And I think that's how a person like this renders relationships permanent. Dahmer ate them. This guy keeps them tucked away in his mind like a little mental file. But Sam Little remembered them so intimately that he could draw them right down to their jewelry decades later. And don't think for a minute that the fuel is not there. Dennis Rader draws to fuel it. You think Dennis Rader doesn't draw that stuff to get aroused? Jerry Brudos who was a foot fetishist, used to get catalogs for shoes in the mail and use the catalogs. So the point is, unfortunately, there will be people that will connect with him, that will help him fuel it, that will send him pictures of themselves that are sexualized, that are in love with him. Some of these people that just don't believe that he did it because they're obsessed with him. I was on Core TV tonight with someone. I don't have to get into the details of it because you could see it yourself. But the person said, I don't believe he's going to have fans. Okay, I think he's going to be signing autographs. There are going to be websites selling his things signed by him. I know of websites where you can purchase autographed images of victims.
Dr. Gary, they were selling Dahmer's glasses on eBay.
Oh, I'm well aware of the glasses being sold, and I'm well aware of a lot more disturbing things than that.
But I'm just saying that this is the kind of stuff that there's always a fringe group of people that obsess about convicted murderers.
They treat them like the relics of saints.
I know. It's weird, man.
We built a church around the pinky toe of Saint so-and-so. It's exactly the same thing. That there are museums to the artifacts from serial killers.
I know.
I've seen Ted Bundy's VW bug. I've seen all that stuff. You've seen it too, right, Chris? Yeah, I've seen all those relics of those people. And, so look, the fact is, what is so disturbing about this, beyond the rendering powerless the people who have to live forever with the memories of their loved ones and all this other outrageous nonsense, the unfairness, the sickeningness of it. The fact is, watching this guy relish it is going to be puke worthy. You know, and there is a part of me that, for the purpose of understanding him, would like to talk to him and write about him. But it bothers me. Anybody who's read The New Evil will notice I didn't make one single reference to Rader. Michael Stone and I didn't want to. It bothered us. We knew that he would find out about it and it would make his head blow up. So we said, keep him out. Keep him out. We did it on purpose. We had killers write to us or contact us and complain that their rating wasn't high enough.
It's like people playing Madden. They're like, my rating's not high enough.
My rating's not high enough. Can you imagine? And then you had people, Lawrence Bittaker, remember him? Went around in the van with Norris, picked up women,
Yes.
killed one of them with a sledgehammer, breaking the joints of her body, recorded everything. Okay. Bittaker, I was at a conference with Ann Burgess and Michael Stone and Alan Burgess, Ann Burgess's husband, who co-wrote the Crime Classification Manual. Okay. We're presenting, and we get a call. How? I have no idea. We get a phone call from Lawrence Bittaker communicating to us that he's annoyed that his rating can't be changed. That's
Aren't there trading cards?
Oh, there are
trading cards.
By Eclipse.
Because Kohberger his rookie card is coming and people will applaud it. He's a sick puppy. And I think what his first awakening will be multiple white socks with bars of soap. And there you go. And he will be pummeled into humility, at least to understand the rules. He's going to be given the rules. And
the pecking order, you mean, Chris? Like the way it is in the military?
Yeah, and he's nobody right now, right? There are lifers in there that are going to say, you're nobody right now. And that pecking order is going to happen. Some guy's going to show up bald-headed with a schwa sticker on his, or a schwa, on his chest. And he's going to say, we've been waiting for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome. You get a choice. You can either do everything we tell you to do, or, you can do everything we tell you to do. That's your choice. Choose today, right? Choose now or forever hold your peace. And, he'll get 15 seconds to make a decision. And then he'll realize that, oops, I'm here where there are actually crazy people, because they're going to see him. Whenever you go into prison, they send your file, and they call it a jacket. And before you ever hit the yard or ever get into, your assignment where you're going to go, the inmates already know, because your jacket got there before. And typically it's, seen almost immediately by inmates who are working for the system, i.e. who's in the library, who's in the office, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so they already read it and they send it up the line. So by the time you hit the door, they've already figured out where you're going to go, how you're going to get there. And, there's a waiting party for you. And he'll go into the SHU, special housing.
I think so, probably.
Oh, no question about it. And they'll keep him in there for his own safety, number one. And then they'll process him with the docs and kind of get him on a medical routine, right? They'll get him on meds or whatever he's going to be needing.
Well, I don't know, but he'll be evaluated, I'm sure.
Yeah. But, this is going to be a whole transition for him. Right now, county jail, he's ordering, vegan meatballs and all this other stuff. Well, that homie ain't playing that in in Department of Corrections. You know, they may give them a, you know, a ladle of slop. Okay?
Yeah, we got this from
That-
a horse trolley.
that's on the board vegan. Okay.
Yeah, but
And they'll
but
just,
Chris, it's a violation of his rights because he's very sensitive to the notion of killing a living thing.
Yeah.
It's against his beliefs to kill a living thing.
Department of
Unless it's a
Corrections don't
human.
care.
Unless it's a human, then he's okay with it.
Here's your bologna sandwich. Have a good night.
Hitler was also a huge advocate for animal rights.
Hang on for a minute. I gotta catch buddy.
It speaks to the splitting and the personalities, fragmentation.
You know what I always thought was funny, Dr. Gary? Well, not funny, but when do you remember the story about when he demanded his aunt and uncle buy new pots and pans?
Oh yeah,
because he couldn't eat out of what was it? He couldn't eat out of the pots and pans that were had been cooked with meat before.
It's outrageous. But you know what? What you're picking up on, Dustin, is really smart. Is that see, there are certain personalities that those fragmented people that I'm talking about. One of the really interesting characteristics they have, I've seen it in therapy for years, is that they develop an aversion to something because they like it so much. Like the person who passes out at the sight of blood and you find out a couple of years later kills somebody.
Yeah, right.
Because the reason they're so horrified by it is how much they like it. So imagine a person who can't imagine harming an animal and then commits a mass murder with the knife. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It means that the reason you're horrified by it is that it thrills you. It's secretly, it's naughty, it's outrageous, but you like it. And so as a consequence, you dread it. And it's like when Shakespeare said, the lady doth protest too much. It's that quality of you're pushing against it because you. Now, I don't like when people apply that to other things, like the notion of the no means yes, that kind of thing. Absolutely outrageous. That is not what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about the phenomenon of a person who says, no, I couldn't possibly, I couldn't eat one cookie. You find out the next day that we're in like the subway bathroom with 13 chickens, on an eating binge. It happens. You get that person who fights against it, and then so that's how I think you have to picture this guy. He would have been somebody who tried to clamp down and fight impulses, and then in the shadows would indulge them. And I would be very surprised if we didn't find out, for example, that he had a very strong anti-pornography attitude, or very racist, hated a lot of people, that kind of thing.
That he has?
Yeah, I would not be shocked if he, for example, went around telling people that it was outrageous that they were so sexually overt and comfortable, but then in private he was looking at that stuff.
And he probably thought like all women were, a certain way as well. And
they had beautiful birthing hips.
Yeah, but and that's all right. That's all they're good for to him or whatever. There's mom on the pedestal. Yeah, and he walks around.
And then there's the woman that you don't think of as anything, as even a person. The famous Madonna whore kind of idea. I mean, that's how some of these splitter people are. And I think that's exactly what you would have been dealing. You would have been dealing with a guy that would try to go out on a date with someone, right? And say the thing about birthing hips, be angry that nothing happened because he feels inadequate, and then goes home and watches the most outrageous, violent pee.
Sure.
Right? Just think about that weird fragmentation. Remember we learned on Dateline about the Korean exchange student that liked him, actually? He didn't have any interest in her. Why? Because of her race?
Probably.
Because he thought less of her? Because he wouldn't want to belong to any club that would have somebody like him for a member?
Because she wanted him.
Exactly. Which made her a loser, probably.
He doesn't want people who want him. Why would anybody want him?
I don't know.
That's why there are
a lot of people who want him.
No, but you understand. Well, before that, nobody wanted him. Nobody knew who he was. He lived a life of obscurity. Now he's infamous. But what I'm saying is that the lady that showed him attention, he doesn't want that. He wants the unattainable. That's what he wants.
Well, I think
that's a great point. I believe that
sounds Oedipal.
Yeah, that Steve and Christy and their attorney are going to demand that the court at least give them the discovery information. So I can see some families moving towards the court providing that information just to give them closure. But that will be behind the scenes. And it wouldn't surprise me at some point, based on some of the things that we're reading, if there aren't more things happening with the civil stuff with the family, because every time you see Steve and Christy, they have their attorney next to them. And remember, early on, the court gagged everybody, including their attorney. So I think that guy's going to have something to say at some point. So I think that's a possibility still coming. I don't know that for sure. That's just my prediction. So far, I'm batting 1,000. Not to, talk about the Padres and how they hit, unlike the Giants. But
Giants-
If I knew anything about baseball, I bet that comment was unbelievably witty.
unbelievably,
It
in
sounded
fact,
super witty,
that's
but it went
that's
like,
the kind of stuff that comedians steal, and they project it all across the world. Anyway, let's see here. This is a great question from D. How can you guys deal with these kinds of people and have a normal brain and life not affected by trauma? Well, for me, because I'm going to answer it first,
please do.
comedy and humor play a major role. That thing right back there, that guitar, plays another role.
Oh, yeah.
Stability within my relationship with my sweetheart and my family plays the other role. And my relationship with God, for me, plays the most important role. And that is what's gotten me through all the horrific stuff. And I would be lying to you, though, if there aren't times where I just go, man, this stuff is hard.
But Chris, you have to admit, behind closed doors, when you and I talk, we really do talk about that stuff. God is in the room all the time when we talk. I really think people would be astounded at how faithfully we, you know what I'm saying? How we really use this to get through.
Right. And I'm always like you, Gary, and like Josh, I'm always respectful of everybody. I don't like the type of things where people, judge another person just because. I try to give people the benefit of the doubt until they show me their cards. And when they show me their cards, then, you know me like a book, Gary, and Josh, you know me. There are things that I will talk about, and there are things that I will not talk about. And that's why my nickname was the Vault, because
Right.
when it got into, like, I'll give you Michael Vaughn. There are things that even you guys don't know about my involvement in Michael Vaughn. I'm not going to talk about it. And you guys have been my friends for years. And the public will, one day they're going to go, holy crap, that's McDonough. But that's just what we do. That's what you do, Gary. That's what on many levels. People just don't know. And we can't even get invited to Crime Con. We're actually working cases and we can't even get an invitation. So if anybody knows somebody at Crime Con, I'd like an invitation to Crime Con to set up a panel and talk with Dr. Brucato and Josh and others about some great things. I met recently with some people in the Emily Pike case. I'm not going to put it out here on YouTube in terms of who I met with or what the discussions were, but those are the kind of things that we just do. We do that behind the scenes. And how do I live with that? He's everything to me. And I'm nothing. I'm just dirt. I'm organized matter. And I think Bryan, that's what gives us the gift to see the evil and to sit there and to realize, you know, when I sat with, if you guys want to see some really crazy stuff, go look at my playlist where I interviewed Wesley Allen Dodd.
Oh, okay.
I've got three. I've
Can't
got
think about that guy.
I've got hours of interviews with him that they're just too horrific to put on YouTube. But I put some pieces down there on how to protect your children, because that's the right thing to do. And you know what? We take hits for it, and that's okay. You know, that's okay.
Well,
I'm good with that. Go ahead, Josh.
look, I joined the witness, or the I joined victim witness when I was 4 years old. I was in victim witness. I still am a part of victim witness, and now I advocate for victim witness for kids or teenagers who
Awesome.
have lost parents due to violent crimes. I've talked to hundreds over the years, and I think, as horrible as the stories are that you hear, you can always be sure that you can tell somebody that you can get through it. You can live a prosperous life. You can have connections with friends or partners or, you know, whatever. And it's a very challenging thing, but somebody did it for me when I was young, and it helped me a lot. It helped me to go, wow, like there are other people that have been through similar situations that I have. And it's comforting. It's comforting to know that there are people that understand. There are people that understand you, and that you can communicate and connect with. But like Chris said, you know, like you have to be able to laugh and smile, and or else it just eats you up. You know, for the first 7 years of my life, I thought that every night someone was coming to get me. You know, we walked around, we made sure all the doors were locked every night, because I was scared that somebody was going to escape and come finish what I thought for the longest time was an unfinished job. And I got over that through counseling. But I'll tell you this, and Chris, and I'm with you, you know, faith plays a big part in this. My animals, my children, changed my life.
Yeah.
I mean, from a young kid, I would wrap my arms around the biggest dog I could find, and I felt so protected. Now I have two of the smallest, fattest dogs that can't protect me, but I can protect them, and they give me love, and it's a way for me to take my mind off of things when I feel overwhelmed or anxious about stuff.
Gary?
Well, I think that human beings have developed over the years an amazing capacity to put things into an unconscious place. I think the unconscious is very adaptive. I think there are some people who suffer because they can't put things into the unconscious, like people that are just too aware of certain things that they can't bury or keep repeating in a traumatic way or whatever. But my sense has been that I've dealt with it by being rather compartmentalized and having a 30,000 foot kind of view of it, like a surgeon or something. And what keeps me going, in addition, of course, to faith and knowing people who are in the same business and in the same boat, people who know that this is a treacherous field and that people are only as loyal as their options, and they'll throw you under the bus if they can. You know, you have a couple of good friends that'll really be there for you, whatever, really mean it. They save you, you know, they help you. And the kind of thing where you could say to a person, I saw a case today that was just too much, and you know they won't judge you or think you're weak, right? And but what I think helps me is realizing there's a meaning in it. I have to make meaning out of it. And the meaning for me is I'm dealing with this and I'm kind of numbed out. I'm in the darkness, but it's not me. That's why the new book I'm doing, I called it A Traveler in the Darkness. I have to go into it to help people, but it doesn't become me. I go into it. And I think that I have, as a person, I do have a weird ability to be very distant from things. Anyone who knows me also knows I'm very immune to the pick locks that people use to try to understand people. There are people who know me for years and years and years who don't know a thing about me. I can keep things about myself locked up for a long time. And I think that's because I think of myself as sort of like the airplane has to have that black box in case the plane blows up, like that part's safe, right? You know what I mean? And so I sort of keep myself a little apart. And that can be, you know, I suppose that could be an isolating thing. But I really believe when I go to bed at night that there are people day in and day out that are a little better off because I was put in front of them. I have a service attitude. I believe that, you know, people come in front of me with stories that would turn you white every single day. People that are essayed, people have family members murdered, people who had people that they thought loved them, abuse them, turn on them, people that have lost children to drugs, to alcohol, to suicide, to being locked up in jail, to people who've lost their minds, you know, while they were moving along life, people who have crises of faith, existential crisis, every darkness you could imagine. And I really believe that's a calling. I really do. I think it's like a kind of ministry. I believe that, you know, I didn't become a priest, but I think one day when I meet my maker, I'll find out that he made good use of me. And I really believe it in my heart. I don't know anyone who in private says to me, why do you say those things? You don't really believe that stuff. No, they say that what people see is what I get when I know you in private. You are exactly that thing. And I think that by having integrity, you inspire other people. So when someone comes to me and says, I turn that down because it's unethical, it makes that person say, I didn't know there were really people who did that. I have to be honest with you. I think most people would do it anyway. They just wouldn't tell anyone, not me. That would bother me too much. That's one of the things I appreciate so much about you two. I think it's the reason we've sort of turned into the Three Musketeers here, is that I think we have that in common, that we really honestly believe what we're saying and live lives of service. And we, all three of us, have a little part of ourselves that's a little bit apart and a little lonely and a little in pain because of what we do, but we still smile and keep the world light. Because I think what's happened is a contrast where, let me tell you, I just had it happen today. I was having a conversation with somebody that broke my heart about 15 times and made me see all over again that darkness is real. And then I went outside and the guy that sells coffee said, how you doing? How's your mom doing? How's everything got whatever? And it made me realize again that there are still people in the world that are good. And you know what I mean? And they don't get credit.
And Chris,
anyway, that's my long answer, but I hope it wasn't too boring.
Answer.
Well,
but
Chris,
isn't it the truth?
To Dr. Gary's point, it's true. He does compartmentalize stuff. I just found out the other day that he can juggle bowling pins with his feet. So,
what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Did you hear
something that nobody knew?
Yeah, it was supposed to be a secret, but I told, and flaming swords apparently.
No, come on. But there are things. I mean, just the other day, somebody found out for the first time that that I play the piano. I've been playing the piano since I was a little boy. It's a major part of my life. I compose all the time. I easily could have been a pianist, but there are people who know me for years that don't know that. It's a strange quality, you know. But I think that you guys have that too. There's like a kind of unknowableness to a certain part,
Yeah,
and I think that also helps with the secret keeping.
I think that we've all been affected by traumatic situations in our lives, and we see things very similar, and we also see things different, and we bounce that off of each other. We don't agree on everything ever. I don't think so, and I think that's what makes it great. You know, I mean, the world is a very treacherous place that almost rejects you from the minute that you're born. There's something out there trying to get you sick. There are things that are going to hurt you. There are people willing to take advantage of you. Your life is yours to protect. But the world is not that accepting of people. And it's a hard road to navigate. And I think that all of us have been doing that, you know, and sort of tippy-toeing at the same time. It's just not, life is just not easy. Like you were talking about yesterday, we were talking about when they tore the house down in Idaho, you know, and they said, well, we don't want kids to, you know, be reminded of this or that. It's like, it's life, you know? I mean,
But
life.
I got to tell you, Josh, my blood is boiling because I'm watching the chat, and I'm watching that somebody who is becoming upset with us about what we're saying and saying this is a bad program and what we're saying isn't true or whatever. This is the kind of thing that just makes me want to pull, you know, I don't know if this is some kind of Kohberger enthusiast or something, but the reality is that I'm telling you, Josh, that is a microcosm of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's the microcosm of the person who cannot believe that somebody could be sincere and has to poke at you in that kind of way. What a sad darkness to live in. I hope, by the way, you've hit the yeet button on that, Chris, because that's got to go. But I just think that ultimately that's the hard part, is that, and this is where I think my faith plays into it, and I suppose does for the two of you, is I have to remind myself that it comes with the territory that if you're going to try to do anything right, there's going to be somebody that's going to try to break you down and tell you you're a terrible person or break your spirits or whatever. And Chris, you've got your, thank you, Laura. You've got your share of trolls, Chris, don't you?
You know, here's the way I look at it.
I don't know what else to say. I mean, somebody better get these people a bridge to live under.
Share of trolls. I've got my running ticker on the stock market. With you can buy stock in TIR trolls. I mean, are you kidding me? You know, just it's called TIR, and when the ticker goes through, they all jump in. I mean, it's like, come on, you know, come on, boys and girls. And
but here's the thing, Dr. Gary, and I'm going to teach you something. So I need you to sit back on the couch for a second, put your feet up. And I'm going to teach
boy.
I didn't see whoever was saying anything, but I have been watching the chat, and I see a lot of really beautiful things.
I know, that's true.
Very beautiful people.
Lovely.
And we focus, and Chris and I used to talk about this all the time. We would hyper focus on the one person that was,
that's right,
better, for lack of a better term, a turd head, and ignore the 500 people that were saying beautiful, wonderful things. You help us so much. We love listening to you guys. And but trust me, it's something that I've had to learn, and I'm still learning it. And people used to point that out to me. They would go, why do you always go, you know, you always react to the negative comment, but look at all these good comments. And
it's human nature, because we think that that's the person telling us the truth, that everyone's being nice and the nasty person isn't. Look, there's always that person that's a contrarian. I always said that about Kohberger people. They like just having a different opinion. You know, It's like the roving reporter. There's like the #1 show in town. They're standing outside with a microphone. What? Tell me about it. The choreography was great. The music was amazing. The lyrics were amazing. I loved it. And then the next person, best show I ever saw. And then they get some sourpuss. Eh. It was all right. What did you want? Fireworks shooting out of their ears? I mean, what did you think was going to happen that was any better than that? There's always that person that just for the sake of complaining, I call them professional malcontents. You know, the kind of people, they are masters of complaining. Absolute master. In fact, I'd like a shirt that, you know, about that drawing that I could distribute to the world.
Whole industry. It's a whole industry.
Complaining and being a victim.
Well, yeah, and that's why we have the best mods in the business. I mean, our mods are just amazing. I mean, I'm okay if somebody, you know, is sitting in their boxers in their grandmother's basement,
Eating bonbons.
Eating bonbons and, you know,
He's not
Hershey
referring
Kisses.
to me. We don't have a
Not
base.
a few, but a bag, you know, 2 bags, 10 bags. And, you know, so they hit it a little bit, you know, and then, you know, they had a couple of these little, you know.
How
yeah,
dare you
yeah,
have an opinion?
That guy's a pretzel boy. Yeah, okay, fire off.
He loves corn dogs.
Enjoy the day.
Pretzel boy.
Because guess what? Bryan Kohberger loves you.
Mm.
You know, you're in a good company there. But here's the good point. Here's the best part of this whole thing. We were right.
What else is new?
Well, that's the point. And that, like to your point earlier, there's this other side of human nature, you know, that is just, they relate more to him than they do to us. And that's okay, right? That's okay. I mean, you know, how does the toaster know, you know, to make it light or dark? You know, at some point, you have to set the dial. You know, you have to set the dial and you move it over. You know, I mean, I can tell you stories on the street where, you know, one night we all got name tags that said done, D-U-N-N. And because our chief's name was Dunn, Bruce Dunn.
Oh.
And we all had name tags that said done. And I can remember being in a situation where, you know, they'd look at your name. What is your name? What is your badge number? Right? And you go, you point, and it says done, right? And then he'd look over to the next guy and go, how about you? What's your name?
The
Done.
master dialect.
And literally, this is a true story. And he goes, what are you, 2 brothers? Yes, we are. That's my brother.
Brother and Craig.
We're done. Are you done? Yeah, we're
So
done.
all up
Okay.
and said, done,
Have a good night.
done.
Nothing to see
Done.
here. Move along. Right. And then at 2:00 in the morning, nothing to see here. I had a drunk one time coming out of a bar, and I had when I was a dog handler, Irk is hanging out the window, and there's a big sign on the side of the car that says, keep away, police dog, he will bite. Okay.
Oh.
They bite. This drunk walks by me and he goes, what kind of dog is that? And I looked at him. I said, oh, you haven't heard? He goes, what do you mean? I said, that's a coyote. He goes, a coyote? I said, yes, sir. That is a coyote. And he yells to his buddies. He goes, they're training coyotes. And they're putting coyotes in the back seat of these cars.
It's a werewolf.
Right. And I said to his buddy, I said, hey, get him home. Okay. We're losing time here. Long story short, all of a sudden I turn and I hear, ow. And I look back and this guy's got his face into the car. Irk's got him by the face, impaled German Shepherd, police canine. It says it right on the side. And I walk up and I pry him off. I say, you're not the sharpest tool in the shed, are you? You know, time to go to jail. Click, click, matching bracelets and all.
He got charged for messing with the dog.
I booked him for interfering with a police canine.
Good.
Yeah, which is a crime in California. And of course, you know, he was the laughing stock when he got to the drunk tank because they're like, "What are you here for?" Can you imagine that story?
That's
Kissing a
one of the charges
trying to
that
kiss a
drop,
and he
right?
said to me, he says, "I only wanted to kiss him." I said, "You want to kiss the coyote?" Yeah, okay. Plant life.
Who hasn't kissed a coyote?
Book him. You know,
That's
book
so
'em. So,
disturbing. I mean, who says such a thing?
and that's the other thing that people don't understand. I mean, look what law enforcement goes through. Just watch the riots. They go home at night and they go, "Honey, do we have any Pop-Tarts?"
Right.
Right? It's like, well, didn't I just see you on YouTube getting rocks, bottles, you know, cussed at, you losers and all. It's like, okay. And so when they hit the chat or they do whatever they do, you know, the criminals do it on the other YouTube channels. It's like, here's a hint, okay? Have something positive to do about the victims, help the families and just keep moving on because it's a no-brainer because what's going to happen tomorrow? Everybody's going to shift. Bryan Kohberger is going to do probably nothing. His team's going to say whatever they're going to say. And by the way, Karen and I are going to stream it live. Okay. That, you know, good things. What is right here?
I just call him. I started calling him Bryan Nothing Burger, and that's basically how I feel about him. Every time I hear his name at this point, I resent that I have to look at him.
Thank you.
I resent it. I feel he is inflicted on me. That his presence is I'm demanded to know about Bryan Nothing Burger, and I'm not interested in him. And you know what I'm saying, Chris? It's like, aren't
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you, Admiral, for your service. Admired. You know, we appreciate it. And thank you for your that kind donation. That was not necessary, but we appreciate that very, very much.
Dr. Gary, one time Chris and I were getting ready to do a show, and it was a pretty big show. And I think at one point I can't even remember who we were interviewing, but we had like 10,000 live viewers in the chat. And it was before we were starting and backstage. And I said, Chris, there's tons of people waiting, you know? And I said, are you nervous? And cause I was a little nervous because there were so many people, and he looks at me, he goes, can they shoot at us? And I go, no. And he goes, then I'm not nervous.
Yeah, I've been involved in 3 shootings.
He wasn't even kidding at all. It was serious. And I was like, that's great advice.
But you know what I do? I love people. I love everybody in our chat. I mean, I've never met you. I want to meet you guys. Ask my wife. You know, I got this trait from my dad, who fought in World War II, Korea, Vietnam. And he was one of the most enthusiastic, positive mental attitude people I've ever met. And he was my role model. And my dad, that we were in Boston one time and we were in the Boston Harbor, and he used to wear this hat. Hang on. I'm going to go get it.
He's going to put it on. $5 as he comes back wearing it, Dr. Gary. What do you think?
I wouldn't be surprised.
You owe me $5.
I lost my dad in 2014, but this is his hat. World War II, Korea, Vietnam. He wore this thing everywhere, right? Just for the conversation. Now, it was never about him. That was the amazing part. They'd look at his hat and they'd go, oh, wow. You know, and by the way, he's buried in Arlington National Cemetery. Amazing human being. We're in the Boston Harbor one time in a boat, and this other guy is coming by and he's got a Marine Corps flag waving in the wind on the boat. My sister, Karen, our family, we're all there. And my dad goes, hey, and he starts yelling at this guy. And I'm thinking, Dad, they're going to think you're a nut. Okay. You're not wrapped real tight right now. Okay. right? That's what they're going to be thinking in the other boat. And he goes, "Hey, Semper Fi, Marine, Semper Fi," and he's yelling. And the other guy stands up and he goes, "Hey!" And the two of them. And I was like,
Oh,
wow. And that's the love that they have for each other.
oh yeah.
That brother and sisterhood and the military. And that's why I grew up going, and around these people my whole life and respecting them. And it's, that's what we're supposed to do.
Dr. Gary, I didn't know if you knew this or not, but Chris was actually conceived at the Pentagon.
My parents met at the Pentagon.
Same thing.
Yeah. And I love doctors, nurses, teachers, military folks, all branches, because I think these are the people, these individuals are the core of our society and our culture. They're the core that keep us all together. They really are. And when we start breaking those lines down, my gosh, we're in deep problems, because we at least have had careers where we can hold the line and say, "Hey, by the way, Bryan Kohberger's not the last one. There will be many Bryan Kohbergers coming."
Yep.
Oh
They're-
no,
they're-
it's in less than a year. There'll be a case, front page news, that is somehow even more horrifying than this. It's the way it works.
Yeah.
Well, I would
And-
tell you that the Travis Decker situation is one of the worst that I've heard.
Right.
Killed his
somewhere there are people walking around, someone's daughter, someone's son,
Yep.
someone's brother, someone's friend, whatever. Biggest problem they have right now is what flavor noodle soup they're going to have at the picnic. And they don't know that some monster is going to snatch them out of the world. And it's terrifying. And believe me, as the world goes on, it will go on killing, maiming, assaulting, all of it. And most of it won't make it into the newspaper, because in 2025, it takes a heck of a lot more than that to make it on. That's what New Evil is all about. Keeps getting topped. And believe me, there'll be a story. We'll all be on, television, Court TV, Nancy Grace, all the shows talking about it. We'll be on here talking about it. And Bryan Kohberger will be swept up into the dustbin. But the tragedy of it is that there's the risk of allowing that to happen to the victims. That cannot happen. We have to say their names, demand that the world remember them. And that, I really think that's at the heart of what the families are feeling. The families are feeling like, their kids were insignificant. It was all about Brian's happiness, comfort, and all that. And at some point, you get sick of it, What about the
I mentioned that on Nancy Grace, that he has to give restitution. And I said on Nancy Grace this morning, I said, restitution. What's the price tag of 4 dead children?
Exactly.
I mean, it's almost like, seriously. And by the way, yesterday was my son's birthday. Why I didn't tell anybody who passed away. And it was, everything just happened so fast. But this is one of these, what we talk about, compartmentalizations, right?
Oh, yeah.
June 30th was when my Ryan was born, 1983, and he passed in 2003. So this case has been very personal to me, as well as others. But, my son was 20 when he died. And this isn't about me. Don't misunderstand where I'm going here. This is about these 4 kids. But I understand the shoes of a Steve and a Christy, and Karen does too, standing up and going, "We're sick of this.
That's right.
We're tired of this." They have every right to feel that.
Right.
Every right. And
I think
people are already attacking them
they've been too
just
graceful.
because they have feelings.
They've
It's
been
disgusting.
graceful. Yeah, they've been graceful, Chris. Most people would have blown a gasket a long time ago.
Yeah, it's disgusting. I don't get that part of where we're at anymore. We've lost that piece of our civility. I just don't understand that swing. You
Chris,
know,
there was, speaking of the, not to get off subject, but I've heard people criticizing them for their GoFundMe, you know, that has happened. There's a YouTube, I won't say who it is, but there was somebody who does a show who was complaining about the amount of money that was donated to the three little girls' families who you know were murdered by their father, and they were questioning the amount that was donated. They don't need that much money to bury those children. And I'm sitting there going, have we lost the plot here? I mean, honestly, have we, are you just losing your mind? Are you insane to people do that? And I just go, this isn't about money. You think that they wouldn't trade, give everything back, including their arms and legs, to get their loved ones back? Chris, there have been times, and I'm sure this has happened with you too. I've said that I would legitimately give up a limb to have a conversation with my mother that I lost many years ago. No question, easily. I mean, and you know, it's just not even a, so people have lost their minds.
Oh yeah.
People sit behind keyboards and type the most awful things because they're so unhappy with themselves. They're just down, and life hasn't treated me fairly. So why should I have any empathy for anybody else? Why should I try to understand anybody else's point of view? Because my life sucks. And half of that is because of circumstance, and half of that is because of my horrible attitude. And nothing gets better when you sit behind a keyboard and worry about things that don't matter to you in your life. You have to get up every day, you brush your teeth, you comb your hair. Hopefully, when you walk out into the world, try to put out some positive energy, and it reciprocates. It really does.
Yeah, but you see, what you're getting at is right at the heart of what Michael Stone and I meant when we coined the phrase "new evil," is that there are some people that are an embodiment of the culture in which they're living. Their crime has to be understood as a reflection of what's going on culturally and technologically, and reflects the outrageous, disinhibited, and audacious attitude of the time. And that's just it. I think in many ways, Kohberger is like the quintessential postmodern, 20-something-year-old kid who feels entitled because he's deprived and has a detachment from reality because he lives behind a computer screen and doesn't know that these are people, really doesn't understand that they're people. In a way, he's like a microcosm, the same way that I think Mangione is, who of course is not proved guilty yet. But talk about a microcosm of the time. The everything about him and the way he plays it up. He basically is like a Kardashian of the true crime world at this point. Manufactured fame. You know what I mean? Pseudo philosophy and all that. He is.
Think about Bonnie and Clyde.
Sure.
They were terrible people. Terrible people, and they had a fan base cheering them on, helping them avoid police. They would ambush police officers, ambush them. These young, and people cheered it on. You want to tell their car that was shot up by the U.S. Marshals sits in a museum as well.
Of course it does.
You know what it should have been? It should have been compacted and thrown away instead of put in a museum. Oh, this is history. Who cares? It's not good history. Their story is not romantic. It's one of murder and robbery and jailbreaks. There's nothing There's nothing cinematic about it. Nothing.
To
You
tell
know,
you the truth, it gets boring. The more true crime I do, the more I realize that what's really exciting is somebody who has their stuff together, has a stable life, and is kind. Same thing happens with dating. You go out with a couple of people with a few screws loose, you go on a date that you could build the HMO for, and at first it's exciting. And then after a little while, you go, you know what's really exciting? That you have a positive bank account. that you are stable.
Yeah.
That you know what I mean? That you have a family that's intact. That I could, that you don't drive everybody crazy. That you could keep a friend. That you belong to something greater than yourself. That you have a sense of humor. Let me tell you that every little while that gets exciting because it's rare. It is rare. And you start realizing that those nutty people, those wild, fascinating look at me people, they're a dime a dozen, and they have no loyalty at all. And what really happens, of course, is as you mature, is you realize that you could count on one hand the number of people that'll really cry when you're gone, and that you could really count on. There aren't that many of them. Not really. Know what I'm saying? There may be 100 people that say, I'm sorry, what could I do? There may be 25 people that come to the service, but there'll only be 2 or 3 people who.
Well, I would cry, Dr. Gary, if something happened to you. You too, Chris.
Laughing, or like cry laughing, or authentically cry?
I would
like
laugh.
Cry keeling over, like if I fell on a banana peel or something?
No, I mean, I would laugh days later, but about like stupid stuff, but I would genuinely be upset. Yes.
Well, you shouldn't be, because if something happens to me, you know where I go.
That's the saving grace.
But all I'm saying is, look, I think that Kohberger, the tragedy of him, beyond what he did to other people, the tragedy of him is that he has to be understood as a person existing in a world in which the internet was flooding his brain with beautiful people, with fake backgrounds on Instagram, palm trees and, whatever, gorgeous people living a fabulous life that didn't even exist. And he thought that he was a kind of a loser who couldn't have it. And I'm not trying to say that you should see him as some sympathetic figure. I'm just saying that the world breeds that kind of boy these days. You know what I mean? The loner who thinks that he's got nothing better to do than show his aggression, to assert his masculinity, or whatever. Somebody's got to say to him, to people like that, that's not what a man is. You just be a good person and somebody is going to fall in love with you. You just wait. Somebody will look into your heart and will say, you know what? I've been with these disgusting types, and, I like your kindness. I like your heart. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Well, it's funny when people would ask like me about my kids when they were younger, and they say, what do they want to be when they grow up? And, it changed, it changed every other day. And I said, I don't know what they want to be professionally, but as long as they're a good person, I'm happy. As long as they treat people with respect, as long as they're polite, courteous, stand up for themselves and others that they love. I'm
Somebody will see it as sexy.
Yeah, absolutely. To be a janitor.
Have you ever known a person in your life that objectively may not have been a person that walks down the street and there's people wolf whistling, but you saw that in a dark time, they were the person who it brought out the best in them. They took care of everybody else. They were the one who never sat down at the table because they were too busy serving everybody else. Yeah. They were the one who was the most thoughtful. They were the person who called you up and said, how you doing? Did you get home okay? I was worried about it. And let me tell you, you fall in love with them.
And they're the ones that stay after a party, a graduation party, or a dinner party, and help you clean up. And you say, no, you don't have to do that. And they stay and they engage with you, and they truly, those kind of people are amazing. And they could be a janitor, and it doesn't matter.
And it's sexy. And it's attractive. That's right. It's attractive.
Have you ever seen somebody who is like a janitor who takes their job very seriously, and they do it with respect, and they show up on time? I had a guy that worked at a hotel that I knew, and he did nighttime janitorial work. And I'm telling you, he was the best janitor I've ever seen. I mean, the windows were spotless, the floors were beautiful. And he told me, he says, you know, I come here, I work, I do what I'm supposed to do. I go home and I'm proud of the job that I did, even if nobody else respects it. And I would always say, I would look around. Matter of fact, at the time when they were handing out reviews, he was the only one in the entire hotel that got all 5s on his review, the janitor.
Really?
And he was an amazing worker and an amazing person. And he was pristine. You know, his uniform was always pressed. It was just, I learned a lot from looking at him. You know, it's not about what you do, but it's how you do it. It's how you present yourself. And guess what? People were attracted to him as a human, as a person.
Of course. Well, Martin Luther King Jr. famously said, I mean, I'm going to misquote him, but the gist of it was that if you were called in life to be a street sweeper, that you should sweep the streets the way that Michelangelo painted and Shakespeare wrote and Handel composed, you know, that kind of thing. So that because it's your calling, do it with grace, and somebody will think it's attractive.
Correct.
I mean, that's all I'm saying. And that's the thing I think Kohberger did. That's the essence of him, I think, was that he felt deprived and was angry that he couldn't reduce the world to a science where he could figure out what that thing was. If I could just do it, I'll be socially successful, because he didn't have the mechanics to be social. And it infuriated him, I'm sure of it. And he did not understand that the coal was coming from within the house. It was everybody else's fault. He didn't understand he was weird. I think he's weird. You ever see him? Did you ever see him talk for 1 second? He's weird. He's a weird guy. So
it's true.
It takes a lot for me to say somebody's weird. I like weird. But,
yeah,
but
weird.
he's a different weird. He would give me the creeps.
Creepy weird. Definitely.
Does he give you the creeps, Chris? Kohberger? No, seriously. I don't mean Josh. I mean Kohberger.
Yeah, I mean he's just in a different realm, and
yeah,
I tell you that I would have loved to sit in a room with him. To be honest with you, you know what I mean.
You want to sit in a room with him?
I'm sorry.
You want to sit in a room with him?
Yeah, but that's just to kind of
who me
figure him out. No. Well, Josh, do you want to sit in a room with the dude?
No.
I mean, I'd want to sit in a room to learn.
Oh yeah, that.
Yeah,
but not the tap tea. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's not a.
No, but you see that
you can have a vegan burger.
But you see, I guess I come from a different space because I've put so many bracelets on these guys out in the wild. You know, when you're chasing, I hooked some guy up in Florida one time. My partner and I, we had, and then we're going to take some questions. And we had to get on the airplane before everybody else. And so they put you in the very back. And if you don't know this on a commercial airliner, look in the very back row. If you see two dudes that look like cops and they're sitting with the other dude in the far corner against the window, they're probably transporting him, and he's probably a bad dude.
And they always take that very back row off to the window, two people in between.
Yeah, because you're put on there before everybody else.
Correct.
You know, you come in through the tarmac and you come up the stairs and they tuck you in there. So whenever you get on the plane, whenever people get on the plane, you're already sitting there. But anyway, I had this guy, his name was Mark Gessie. Mark, if you're listening, I hope you're well.
Shout out, Mark.
Shout out to Mark. And he had killed a guy, and I got him, and he's up against the window, and we don't have our weapons on. They're in our bags. And he looks at me and he goes, how am I going to use the bathroom? And I said to him, I said, you don't have diapers? He looks at me, he goes, that's really mean. I said, they didn't give you Depends? in the jail? You know, he goes, no. I said, well, I don't know how you're going to use the bathroom. You know, that depends on what you're going to do.
It's up to you. Yeah.
And he didn't like that analogy that I made it a joke. Go figure. Me? Get out of here. Anyway, we had a delightful flight. He did not wet his pants.
Yeah.
And we landed successfully in San Diego. And
Funny that, right?
yeah, we were the last one off of the plane. So let's look at some of the questions here, and then we're going to call it a night.
Well, Chris, if it's okay, I want to draw attention to one of the comments that came, which I found very powerful. Someone in the audience named Lorelei shared that her son, who had severe autism, died very suddenly. I just want to personally send out my heartfelt sentiments. I can't even imagine. This just happened a few months ago. This is this year. That's pretty bad. I don't know how you're dealing with that. And I don't know what the circumstances are, but I personally will keep you in my prayers and thoughts. Chris and Josh, I'm sure you would echo that. But that's brutal. I don't know how old. Why don't you tell us how old your son was? I'd really be interested to know that. Did you see that, Chris?
I missed it. I'm so sorry.
That's about as bad as it gets. I mean, losing your special needs son. My God. So I'm sure the whole audience will keep you in their thoughts and prayers. There's a wonderful supportive environment. I have to tell you, there's something very therapeutic about coming back and listening to these conversations and being with this group. And I hope you will, because you'll make friends here. There are people here who will connect with you, and there are quite a number of people here who know what it is to lose a child. So I want to draw attention to that. I also know how important a parent is in the life of a special needs child. And I'm sure that you made your son's life a lot more beautiful. And the fact that you're here sharing that is a testament to how much you loved him. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out, Chris. I thought that was so heartbreaking.
Thank you for doing that, Gary.
I'm sure you'd echo it, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Of course.
My God. I mean,
yeah,
I wonder if it was a little. Oh, there you go. It says he would have been 27 years old. Let's see. It says, thank you most deeply and sincerely from the bottom of my heart, Dr. Gary. Justin would have been 27 March 14th. But with zero disrespect, Justin was very much like that precocious age of a 6 to 8 year old. Oh, so he had severe autism, is what it sounds like from the description, and I think that was mentioned earlier. Well, it takes a very special parent. I mean, Chris, you could speak to this, right?
Yeah, there's no words. There's no words, but and just God bless you, and just know it won't go away, but it does. You learn to endure it. You learn to. I think the easiest way to describe it is you learn to carry a very small part of the cross. And I always love the story where the Savior fell while walking.
Oh. Yeah.
And the centurion grabbed an individual out of the crowd and said, carry his cross. But later on, there's always a cause and effect to that the Apostle Paul ends up saluting Rufus and his mother and his son that was born. And when you do the math and look up who that was, he was the son of Simon, who was grabbed from the crowd to carry the Savior's cross. and Alexander. And all of that came together after the Savior had gone. So it does not go away. Yeah, yesterday was and forgive me for even comparing any story, because there's never a comparison for any parent that's lost a child. It's the club nobody wants to be in.
Right.
It's
Absolutely.
but you are able to carry that cross. It's been 21 years for us. And I can tell you, I can talk about it today to help you, whereas probably where you're at, I was, and others, many others, you can't get through that. You don't make sense of it. And this is why it's so important, I think, for people to support these families that are
Yes.
going through this type of stuff. And she's a perfect example that is suffering. And we need to have more compassion, empathy. We need to show that we're all in this together, whatever that means. And by far am, I can be a real turkey sometimes.
True.
Exactly. Josh knows me. And
No.
Gary knows me. But I'm also the other side. I'm fair, firm, and friendly. That's what my children will tell you. I'm fair, firm, and friendly. And I was just, it's just the way you have to be in today's world. The other day we were driving, Karen and I, and some guy came up on top of us, and I let him go past me, and he sent me the international signal of, hey, I'm not really supportive of you. It just happened to have one appendage. And I let him go. He just kept on going. And Karen and I were like, well, that guy's having a bad day. And boy, did he ever. He had pulled over, and he got out of the car, and he was waiting for me as like I was going to pull over. And I was like,
Just like,
I just drove by.
stay strong.
I waved at him like, okay, have a good one.
You did the stay strong, the hand up,
Oh,
stay strong.
he was just yelling and flipping and yelling, just going crazy. And I was like, yeah, okay.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Enjoy your day. Hopefully you get some donuts, because they'll help. And I turned into the office, and I came back in the back, and he pulls in and starts looking for my car, but it's all white cars, and I drive a white car. So he couldn't find me. And he finally drives away. What he didn't know is I had my equalizer, and I carry bear spray in my car. And guess what? I was waiting for the opportunity to blast him if I had to protect my wife and Lady Justice with the scales.
Well, I love the image of the stay strong. My friends tease me, because that comes from something in my life. There's a story that, I can't believe I'm telling this, but it's hilarious. I have to. Is when I was younger, I was on a Greyhound bus that broke down in Milesburg, Pennsylvania. I still remember the town. Milesburg, Pennsylvania. For 3 days, they held us up, not in a hotel, but in a gas station. It was called like Stop and something or other. And what happened is, everybody in this place with me that had been on the bus with me looked like Night of the Living Dead. I got to know them all intimately, because I can get to know a person inside and out in 5 minutes. I spent 3 days with these people who, if you made an IQ bump, let's just say a couple of them looked like somebody stepped on their oxygen tube, and there was a couple of a couple of bright ones. And what happened is, after 3 days, the very, very bizarre woman that worked there fell head over heels in love with me. She was infatuated with me. In her stocking feet, she had to be 1.5 feet taller than me. Okay, she was. We're talking pituitary problem, goony bird, tall, and like an emu. And what happened is, true story. 3 days go by. They send a rescue bus. We're going to get out of there because there was a snowstorm, huge snow up to your knees. Okay. And she comes over and professes her affections. Okay. Now you got to picture this. I got the bag on my back. The bus pulls up to the window. I get shocked by this thing. And she goes, "Can I?" And she had a stutter, which made the whole thing weird. Could I ask you a question? And she professes her affections. I was dazed by this. And I threw the thing on my back and I went to the front door where the bus was and I turned around and I went, "Stay strong." Got out of the bus and pulled away. To this day, I wonder what happened to her. And of course, my friends tease me, about it. Yeah, right. My friends tease me about it to this day. They say, "Oh, you could always go back, back to the rest stop." And I say, "Yeah, I'll get a stool to stand on."
I bet
here.
At one point in those 3 days, did she pick you up and hold you and you wrapped your legs around her?
Have sort of like a hamburger or something. But I'm trying to tell you is that it was the weirdest. It was like a David Lynch movie because there were people there. I'm telling you, I never saw anything like it. There was a guy that was fiending because he couldn't smoke because there were no cigarettes and he couldn't walk in the snow to get them, and he was sort of twitching. There was some guy that was going on and on and on about his, I don't know what he was talking about, the war or something. And I just thought to myself, I am in a television show. I don't know if Rod Serling is going to come out or Alan Funt is going to say we're on candid camera. I didn't know what it was. And when that woman proposed to me, I was done. When she told me she wanted my hand in marriage.
Literally, she wanted your hand.
Stay strong. So that's where I got that from.
I'll tell your story.
Oh, my God.
Bye.
Oh, I hope she's not listening. Fortunately, where she comes from, I don't think they have radios or television.
That's awesome.
No, but Chris, that's what I meant by stay strong.
Pituitary.
Yeah.
Bye. Bye-bye. So,
right, all of us have had experiences. I mean, Josh, I know you have. It's just
God,
you just can't engage them if they're having that kind of day. Just say, thanks a lot. Have a good day.
I've never had somebody with a pituitary problem try and marry me. No.
Well, what can I say? I mean, look, 3 days with me. I mean, you would think that she'd want to run for the hills. I mean, that was so weird about it. 3 days trapped in that place. I mean,
why would she run for the hills if she lived there?
Because after 3 days of listening to me, the average person would be committing harikari. I mean, can you imagine? I am that guy you do not want to be stuck in an elevator with. By the end of the 3, you'd be, twitching. I mean, and can you imagine? Do you want to sign up for a life?
Excuse me, do you have a pituitary problem?
Exactly. It was so scary. Anyway, Herman Munster, if she's out there, listening, I'm sorry, but in another world, in another time.
Another world.
Stay strong. Anyway, all right. So are there any questions?
No, you're fine. Let's get to the questions here because I promised you guys I would only keep you here for 2 hours, and I'm going to keep that promise.
I just wanted to make you guys laugh.
No, you're awesome. What are the odds a family could take the feds into prosecuting for the death penalty since the state won't? Unfortunately, Michelle, I don't see that happening. They're going to defer to the state, and whatever happens tomorrow, that's probably going to be the end of it. I don't understand this question. Stargazing in the park, Bundy is Kohberger's fantasy. Yeah, I agree with that, Tim.
Stargaze, why?
That's the park.
Kohberger's fantasy. All right, why is the park? I think what the person is saying is that, is it a coincidence? And by the way, I didn't mean with the goofiness to detract from the seriousness of the topic.
No.
It's that it's like a coping mechanism. You know what I mean? We sort of had to laugh or we cry kind of a thing. It's part of what we were talking about, like your coping mechanism. But anyway, I think what the person is saying is that, is it a coincidence that you would say your alibi was the park where a body was found that was attributed potentially to Bundy? And, as Chris is fond of pointing out, there are no coincidences in true crime.
Yeah, no, I think he's, and you were the first one to bring it up, that correlation. So, yeah, I don't think there are any coincidences. Thank you, Grace, or Grice, Tracy Grice, for your kindness. We're so grateful. VK is creepy, weird, not autistic. Yeah. Let's see here. He said, I fish. He said, I fish and I play my guitar. I laugh at the bar with my friends. I go home to my wife. I pray every night. I can do it all over again. Thank you. Yes, I concur. 1,000%. We got to, when you're at the end of a rope, you tie a knot and you hang on. That's what you do. You just push. You just push. Those of you that know my story of the man that went through the canyon. Yeah. So everybody knows that story. Let's see your healing prayers. Thank you. And of course, Mama, my all-time favorite.
Dr. You're talking about what I said that the Summerwell's family's home that was supposed to look like a place that they tried to claim that children could live there. It was so disgusting, and it said it looked like Yucca Flats after the blast. Well, they did. I mean, I don't mean that disrespectfully to the victim. I mean that it's outrageous that you would try to claim that was a loving environment.
Yucca Flats is taken better care of. So,
well, you know what Yucca Flats is, right?
Yeah, where they test the nukes.
Yeah, it's like blown to smithereens. I mean, Chris, you saw that. Remember, didn't you say it looked like a dungeon? Disgusting. Come on.
You should have smelled it. If they had smell-o-vision,
God,
it would have been a different day. And my poor sweetheart was sitting in the truck, and she's like, I'm not going in there with all these dogs. There's like 30 dogs on the property, and Karen's, she loves Buddy, but that's a tough one you don't know what's going to go on there. And then I realized, I said, okay, well, here, hold this. And I gave her the equalizer. If somebody comes popping out of that shed, make sure you cover yourself. Over. And so I went into that house without my American Express card.
He said over 10-4.
Stay strong.
Here's the chitty chitty bang bang. Here you go. Stay strong.
Chris, that's going to be my new thing every time I'm on your show with you. I'm just going to go stay strong. Bye-bye. No, but let's see. Somebody said something in the...
Here's the question. Can autistic be a psychopath?
That's a tricky question because, I suppose, because remember, psychopathy is not officially a diagnosis. A person could have traits that, and there can be things that can look alike between them, like social skills difficulties with feeling the feelings of other people, things like that. But there are fine-grained ways of understanding how they're extremely different. But I could. There are people who are psychopathic that have what are called schizoid autistic detachment features of that. Like, in other words, but that doesn't have to do necessarily with autism. Like, for example, Dahmer. Dahmer had the mechanical detachment, but he was a psychopath. You know what I mean? So he's somebody that had been diagnosed, as I understand it, had been diagnosed as autistic, but he was a psychopath. So it's like the mixture is very complicated, but I wouldn't say that he truly was both those things. Yes, that's called schizoid autistic detachment. It's nothing to do with autism. It means that you have a mechanical, intellectualized detachment from the feelings of your victims, right? So, like, Robert Berdella is bringing people home to torture, and he's keeping like a log of his scientific experiments on bodies because he had that detachment, and that made his psychopathy so much more horrible, right? A lot of torture is more about that than it is rank sadism. A lot of it is about curiosity about bodies and what will happen. I think you were saying that when Kohberger carved the legs of Ethan. I think that was intellectual curiosity and experimentation.
I'm curious if that was post-mortem.
I think it was, Chris, because it was determined that he was killed with like a single, right? Isn't that the idea? It's like a single blow. And then it was sort of I think it was like a sort of a signature thing. I talked about that on Court TV today. They said, what makes this guy more like a serial killer? And I said, well, for one thing, I think there was a signature element it was totally unnecessary. That guy should have been getting out of Dodge. Instead, he sits down and he carves hamstrings on a victim. What was that about? That felt to me like a signature.
Yeah, an experimentation in relationship to the next one, right?
Yeah, it had a meaning, like the male got in the way, that kind of thing. Yeah. But it felt signature-like because it felt compulsive and unnecessary to the crime. I actually think that he was annoyed that there was a male there in the story.
Yeah, well, that would make sense if he studied that house and Ethan is there at the last moment, that evening. He got in the way and he took it out on him a little bit more. And I think that's why he sat down in that room. I mean, that's the other piece of this puzzle that we're all forgetting, that he sat in Ethan's room and Xana's room in that chair. It's been reported. So, what's going on there, right? Is he exhausted? Is he out of gas? Is he studying? Is he playing? Post-mortem? There's a lot going on here. And see how we can just shift real fast, guys, from humor to, hey, let's get serious for a moment. Hey, unfortunately, that's how our minds work. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it works. And it's a thing. Okay. So let's see here. When
Josh, stop.
You just threw me off. Yeah.
Josh, because you got that look like you're about to take us from serious to. Yeah, I know you too well, and I watch your face, and I think, oh God, what is he thinking?
I didn't do anything.
Right. So, but I think, Chris, that one interesting comment from the audience was where somebody said something like, it was something about how they thought they read in the Daily Beast or something that there was a way that this deal could be taken off the table. But to echo what I said in the beginning, I don't know how it would be possible because now he has essentially confessed. So what would be the alternative? I mean, how could he get a trial? I don't understand. I mean, he's basically admitted to it. So now what? If you know what I mean, maybe they shouldn't have gone public with the idea that this was happening until it happened. I don't know. But if he rejects it, now the whole world knows about it. I mean, maybe they could say, oh, can't get a fair trial then.
Yeah, well, anything's possible, but I don't see that happening.
Neither do
I think he's gonna go with it. So, okay, 2 hours and 20 minutes. I kept you too long. We're going to be streaming this tomorrow morning, guys and gals. And so we hope you tune in, and then we can talk about it. It's going to be really fascinating to watch how this whole thing's going to unfold. This whole thing is going to be, let's just pray for the families, all of them. Remember, we haven't heard from Xana's mom. We haven't heard from her, from other family members as well. We've heard from Ethan's parents. We heard from, Kaylee's parents, Maddie's parents, or Maddie's dad. There's a whole bunch of other people behind the scenes here that are going to be in that courtroom tomorrow. And tomorrow it's up on our on my page. Just click in there that you're going to be waiting. It's already up, so you'll be able to see it on the.
Yeah, hit the notification bell.
Yeah, hit the notification bell when we go live. I'm going to go live about 15 minutes early, so we'll make it happen tomorrow morning.
Well, I thought this was a great show.
It was a great show.
And I want you to know that I've been very proud that from the beginning, I mean, we were one thing that came out of the Kohberger case that I'm grateful for is that it brought us all together. Our first episode was about Kohberger, and we know each other for years now, since the time of that he was a not even on the radar as a suspect. And I think the good Lord, brought us all together, and I've been very proud of the association, because I have to say I think it's been some of the best coverage. I mean, honest to God, when it comes down to it, it's, I wish there was some award or something. I mean, at CrimeCon they have the, I think, podcast of the year or something like that. But I really think, Chris, when it's all said and done, your coverage of the Kohberger case was really second to none. There were people who tried to corner it, and when you look back at it, it's like a joke show. I mean, nonsense stories that were crazy, bizarre theories defending him, whatever. I think from the start, he was nailed, and it was every instinct turned out to yield fruit over and over and over. And I just think it kept the public informed. It shaped the narrative of how people understood him. I think it, and I've been really proud to be involved. And there's a reason I don't go on a lot of shows. What can I say? Stay strong. But Josh, same thing with you. I've been really happy, participating with you. I have a lot of fun with you, etc. But I think you'd admit we learn a lot from Chris.
A lot.
And he has an amazing nose for what the public will find interesting.
I was a fan of Chris before he ever knew who I was.
You guys are very kind. And if they had an award, it would be the Pretzel Boy Award at CrimeCon. We'd like to call up the interview room. Pretzel Boy, come on up here. And I will accept that award graciously on behalf of all of the other pretzels on YouTube. And
plot twist.
My dear friends, I will invite everybody. But you guys realize none of that could have happened without good people like you.
Well, yeah, but I think you don't get enough credit. It's one of the things that I like about you. Anyone who knows me knows I love a person who's not getting proper credit. And I love underdogs, people that are doing all the work and don't get any appreciation. Those are my people,
What about the lady that professed her love to you at the gas station bus
She was
station?
horrifying. You're forgetting that.
An underdog, Dr. Gary?
Oh, she wasn't an underdog.
Oh, okay.
She was, I mean, I
She
don't know what
seemed like a nice lady. That's all I'm saying.
She was something else. Let me put it to you that way. Let's just say, in the world of Men in Black, she'd be on the radar. Oh. Okay, now, Chris, what I'm saying to you,
number if you have it,
stick, please.
Have her number. Can I get an email address?
Oh God, for a number.
You're in a rugby team.
Yeah. All right. So, but seriously, Chris, I really think you don't get enough credit, and you and Karen, both of you, just did amazing work through this case. And if there was an award, I mean, I really think you're head and shoulders above other people in your coverage of it. And you had guests that were the best. I'm not talking about me and Josh. You had guests that were top notch and actually credentialed and knew what they were talking about. And I just think it's not a coincidence that everywhere you turn on a TV show or whatever, or a documentary on this case, was people from the foundation. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I'm really proud of it. And I just wanted to take a minute to say that. What did you say, Josh?
Look,
credit where it's due. And maybe now that the guy has confessed it, I'm waiting to go on Reddit and see the thread that says we were all wrong about Chris McDonough.
Well, don't hold your breath, man. I still have to, somebody hit me the other day. It's constant, but I'm used to it, so I don't lose any sleep over it. And what I'm going to do one day, if you look at this wall behind me, this is the wall of shame. I keep it here at my house. I don't put it into the public arena because, God deserves the glory. I'm just the instrument in his hands. And I just recognize so many times he has helped me get through things. And remember, I took a lot of hits when I made the comment in the Gabby Petito thing, is it possible? Remember, Josh? Is it possible
Oh, I remember.
somebody is communicating
Burn
with,
after reading, baby. Burn
with-
after reading.
with Bryan? That's what I said. And next thing you know it, I was like the black sheep of YouTube and everything went crazy. But guess what ends up happening, right? The mother and everybody, guess what? They were communicating with him. And all I was doing was asking that question. And oh my gosh, it was like, you know,
And mommy was
open
getting
mouth, insert foot. And it was bad. Even my poor mods, they were like, Chris, I'm so sorry. I'm like, don't worry, it's okay. Mom gave me, good genes, good DNA. We'll get through this. We'll plow through it.
Well,
And
well, look, I also think, and just as a final point, I also think, Chris, that the show offers people a lot of emotional support. As a psychologist, I know the importance of stability and structure and sameness and connection with other human beings. And there is something about like a weekly thing where people can get together and feel supported and have a laugh and have a tear and it has a really important place. I'm telling you, if this show were no longer on the air, there are a lot of people who would be fiending to fill that void. So you just keep doing what you're doing, and your numbers are going up. I mean, you're barreling towards 300,000 followers, and
yeah,
I know some podcasts that have hundreds of thousands of followers, but I swear they buy them. I think they're manufactured. No, really, I could think of a couple. Do you guys not think there are people who buy their fans?
Of course they do.
Yeah.
What do they do? Like pay for? And I also think that there are some podcasts that, honest to God, are grifts. It's horrifying. I'm not getting into it, but there are some that are just a grift. There's grifts, and some of them I really think have manufactured fame. It's really fascinating to watch. And then we'll talk about true crime while engaging in it. Wink. But that's the thing. It drives me nuts. But Chris, am I wrong that you could go out and purchase fans? People do this, right? There are like bots and things.
You just look at some of the channels that have recently passed me.
Dear Lord. I mean,
here's a hand. One I used to be.
Oh, no. I don't want to get into any specifics.
I'm just saying, you brought it up. I'm just, going to say, hey,
page.
Is bot farming? Is that the word for it? Bot farming?
Yeah,
it's engagement farming. Yeah.
What does that mean exactly? I'm really curious.
Well, what you can do, there are apps that will if you want to buy a certain amount of subscribers, you can pay for it. And but they're not real. But
it's getting the algorithm to think that you're.
Yeah, I mean, sort of, but actually, if they find out that you're doing it, you can get terminated for it.
Well, like for example, I know there are people who do that on dating sites. They know that if you just like everybody, you'll get more matches, and the more matches you have, the higher you are in the algorithm.
Casting a wide net.
The algorithm, yeah. Well, so you're saying that? Let me get this straight. You're saying that you buy fake fans, and then somehow that introduces you to real people who are connected to the bots, and then the real people add you, but you don't have to actually engage with the fake ones.
Actually, I mean, I don't know if it does that or not. I know that I've known people. You can buy live viewers too.
Are you serious?
Yeah, but there's no actual engagement. It's just a bunch of bots. So it doesn't actually help. You can have a 5,000 subscriber channel, and say you get 2,000 views. That percentage is huge compared to somebody that has 100,000. Sub channel and gets.
What kind of a person would do such a thing? Imagine what kind of a phony you'd have to be to do such a thing. But you're telling me there are people
boring dolts on YouTube. Like people want to be, interesting and smart and clever, and they're just not. So they convince people that they are by buying fake numbers. That's just how it works.
Well, I think that's really depressing. Do you think they also, this is another question I have, and then we can end. I got to ask this. Do you think there are people that post positive comments about themselves that actually go in as fake accounts and say, like, you're the smartest dude? Like, I just think you're so adorable, fascinating. Do you think people do that?
Those are called puppet accounts.
Yeah,
They actually talk to each other.
That is the most depressing thing I have ever heard in my entire life. Are you telling me that some of those positive comments that some channels receive are fake?
100 innocent, don't ruin it. Exactly.
Really? I can't get over this.
We're going to destroy him. But go ahead.
He's on
Finish your question, Doc.
Well, my question is, do people actually sit there and write themselves positive comments on social media or on YouTube or whatever to make the world think that they are beloved and fascinated? Like, do they manufacture their own celebrity that way? Does that really happen?
What do you call an alligator in a vest again?
An investigator. I want you to know that I heard a joke even worse than that today. I thought of you because it was so dad jokish, and the joke was, wait, let me see if I can remember. What did the drummer call his twin daughters? And a 1 and a 2. Okay, now on that note, but seriously, Josh, I gotta know if this is real. Is this?
It's real, man.
I can't. That's the most depressing thing I've ever heard.
There's somebody in the chat that named the lab that just said the lab is the best, and I don't know who would do that.
I think someone would spontaneously say that.
Yeah, but using the name the lab.
Why is that weird? Isn't it called the lab?
Somebody named the lab in the chat, said the lab is the best.
Oh, they're called the lab?
I'm the lab, Dr. Gary.
I got it. I'm sorry. I'm a little slow on the uptake.
It's okay.
You don't understand how it works. I love it.
I think I'm too innocent.
You are. You're
when it comes to,
you're like a little baby angel without a belly button.
Well, I'm really depressed about that. So, Chris, you're telling me that when I see shows that have numbers that are astronomically high, I shouldn't necessarily think that they have that many fans.
You know, you don't know, but at the same time, well, I guess we're kind of a good gauge. I mean, we have worked all of us as a team, the mods, you know, Karen, myself, all of our guests, we've worked so hard to get to this point. It's organic growth.
Mm-hmm.
And there are others, just like anything else, right, Gary, that they'll try to cut corners, but like everybody's talking about, if YouTube catches them, they'll cut every one of those people out because they'll figure out that they're bots. And every once in a while, they do audits. YouTube does audits because it is a violation against the terms and condition. And so, you know, when you get fakes, you know, who try to, you know, copy the lab rats, you know,
Busted.
It's unbelievable. And by the way, if anybody is not subscribed to Josh's channel, please hit over there with the lab rats, buy some of his merch so he doesn't have to wear that San Francisco hat
you're
again.
acting out in class.
I'm acting out.
Hey, how's your team doing, by the way? Well, we got a second.
They may never win another game again. I'm convinced.
But
you know what? We talked about faithfulness and loyalty. I'll watch them no matter what. Because that's the kind of guy I am. Glutton for punishment.
Yes. Yes, you are.
Wow.
All right, everybody. We love you guys.
Thank you so much. And we'll be back, I'm sure. Tomorrow I'll be on some shows, so I won't say
which
which.
shows are you on tomorrow? Are you able to tell people?
Well, I'm not supposed to announce them, but today I was on, just now before the show, I was on Court TV, and but there's a pretty big one actually tomorrow, but I'm not supposed to announce it. So, but we'll talk about it afterwards.
I never understood that. I don't get that.
They don't announce it. It's not our place to.
It's still stupid.
I think they want the punch of, you know, you never know who's going to appear, but I think I really do predict, Chris, that somewhere down the line, in some way that I don't understand yet, I am going to cross paths with Bryan Kohberger. I'm convinced of it. I believe I'm either going to get a letter from him or I'm going to meet him or something, because I just think he's going to want to talk to me. I really do. Because I think he saw what we said about him and he's going to want to correct the record and understand it. And I have ties to people that, knew him. Some people knew him.
Well, if he's looking for a cop to talk to, give me a call, would you?
Well,
I think the doc, you'll flush him out, and then we'll have you back here, and we'll take care of it. We should get on.
All right.
I want to get on. I can't even get on to CrimeCon. I mean, it's just,
Yeah, you can. We can make that happen.
So we could go to crime. I was on a panel at CrimeCon.
I'm going to go. Karen and I are going to go, but I'd rather be invited.
I liked signing the autographs. It was fun. And let me tell you, when there is a line of people that come up to meet you, and you meet the people that are reading your book, and like out there in the world, like the Gloria Swanson called the wonderful people out there in the dark, you cannot believe the characters that know you and sometimes know things about you and know things. I mean, I was astounded at the things that people came up and asked me and remembered that I said. I mean, I had one person say to me, on one episode you said this, but then you contradicted it with that. Which one is true? And I was like, are you kidding me? Like,
well, we need to talk about sharing a room to save some money when we go.
That's a sort of odd couple situation. I have to be honest with you.
Yeah, whatever. It's not a big deal. Don't make it weird.
I don't share rooms with people well. I have to be honest with you.
That's okay. I don't care.
I yell at them for taking the soap and
yeah, I do. I have
leaving the towels out and things. But anyway, and snoring. But I think that we could go. I mean, I've been as a guest officially when I was on a show, and then they had me talk there. But I haven't been invited back. I don't know why. Probably will be when we have our book coming out. Chris, I think we're probably going to wind up doing a panel or something in the future. I hope so. But I really think that one day our paths will cross there. It is really weird meeting the people from online in person, because a lot of them have like maligned you and hated you. And then you see them like using the urinal next to you and you have to try not to say something, You know what I'm saying? I've told you guys stories, right? About people I've bumped into that I've encountered on the internet. And when they don't have the safety of the screen, they're very kind.
Yeah, of course.
Very kind. I've always been an admirer. Oh, really? I remember what you said about me last week, friend.
I just say to people,
oh my God. What?
This is how I introduce myself to those types of folks.
With the bear spray?
No. This is what I do. Didn't you try to jump off the I-5 bridge once?
So, Chris,
you look really familiar to me.
The face you're making, you look like you're impersonating Clint Eastwood.
Can I shut this?
I swear, didn't we talk for like 3 hours? Yeah. Karen's giving me, let's go to bed sign.
Yeah.
Aren't you a hot dog vendor?
My sweetheart is going.
She's pulling the plug.
Cut it off. You're having too much fun. But we've got 3,000 people here.
Oh,
every one of you, we want you to know how much we appreciate you and how much we love you.
Yeah.
And try that next time. If you run into somebody who's a 5150 and they're just not wrapped real tight, which is the health and safety code for California, where it's a 72-hour commit. It works every time. You just kind of go, have you been on a bridge at some point? I mean, because I was a hostage negotiator, and I'm just curious. I mean, that's why I can talk for hours. Literally, I can, as you, Gary, and like you, Joe, we could stay here till 6 a.m. and turn the Kohberger trial on and still be going.
Oh
yeah, let's rock. But
hey, Dr. Gary, I'm going to need you to let me know what hotel you're going to stay at, and then
Karen's already booked it.
It's the Watergate.
We'll work on conjoining rooms.
And you know what? It'd be great to have a meetup with all of our friends.
That would be awesome.
While we're up there, but we are definitely going. We're gonna pay, and even Maui's like, let's go to Hawaii. Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for being here this evening. Aloha. Continue to take care of one another. Josh, thank you as always, my
Thank
dear
you.
friend.
And
Thank
remember
you.
the victims.
Absolutely.
And yes, always first. Thank you, Doc Gary. Good luck tomorrow. I know you're on some big shows, national shows, by
Yes.
the way. I know, but I
Get
can't
some
tell you.
rest.
So get some rest. See you at the hearing tomorrow morning. Aloha.
Get the-
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts, wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah, make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away, you and me, go to our favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze, some fresh air to put my mind at ease. No cares. You wanna come with me? Me and you go to our favorite tree. Are you ready now? We jump on a plane now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. Don't hesitate now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. We'll never come down. We're going away. Yeah, we're going away. You and me. Feeling the sun on my face in a while.